I found my mother's ashes in the garbage can while taking out the trash on a Tuesday morning. The beautiful mahogany urn my grandmother had chosen, the one that had sat on the mantelpiece for 5 years, was wedged between coffee grounds and yesterday's takeout containers like worthless refuse. My hands shook as I pulled it out, wiping away orange peels and soggy napkins from the brass nameplate that read Elena Rose Martinez, beloved mother and wife. The urn was still sealed, thank God, but seeing it treated like garbage felt like losing her all over again. "What are you doing out there, Catalina?" My stepmother Brenda's voice carried from the kitchen window, sharp and irritated as always. I walked back into the house holding the urn against my chest like I was protecting a child. Brenda stood at the kitchen island, perfectly made up at 7 a.m., sipping coffee from the mug that used to be my mother's favorite. "Why was this in the trash?" I asked quietly. Brenda didn't even have the grace to look embarrassed. She shrugged like she'd thrown away an old magazine. "This house needs fresh energy. She's been dead 5 years. Get over it." The words hit me like a slap. I looked toward the living room where my father sat reading his newspaper, the same spot where he used to sit with my mother every morning, sharing coffee and quiet conversation. "Dad," I called out. He rustled his paper but didn't look up. "Your stepmother is trying to make this place feel more like home for our family." Our family, as if the 15 years my mother spent in this house, the garden she planted, the memories we made, the love that had filled every room, as if none of that counted as family. "This was her home too," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Was," Brenda emphasized, taking another sip of coffee. "Past tense. I've been patient, but I can't live in a shrine forever." I threw out those hideous curtains she made too, and that ugly vase collection. This place needs to move into the present. I stared at her, this woman who had waltzed into our lives 2 years after Mom died, convinced she could erase my mother's existence with new throw pillows and her own family photos. She'd been chipping away at Mom's presence piece by piece. First the pictures, then the furniture, now this. "You threw out her vase collection." "Donated it," Brenda said with fake charity, "to Goodwill. Someone who actually appreciates vintage junk can enjoy it now." Those vases weren't junk. They were pieces my mother had collected from every place we'd ever traveled as a family. The blue one from our trip to Santa Fe when I was 10. The crystal one from our anniversary dinner when my parents celebrated 20 years together. The small ceramic one I'd made for her in pottery class when I was 12. I quietly picked up the urn and walked to my room, closing the door behind me. I sat on my bed, holding the container that held all that was left of the woman who used to braid my hair before school, who taught me to cook her grandmother's recipes, who stayed up all night when I had the flu. 5 years. It had been 5 years since the car accident that took her away from us. 5 years of Dad slowly forgetting who he used to be. 5 years of watching Brenda systematically erase every trace of the life we'd built together. But throwing away my mother's ashes, that wasn't redecorating. That was desecration. I opened my laptop and started making phone calls. The first call was to my Aunt Sophia, my mother's sister, who lived 3 states away but had always told me I could count on her for anything. "She did what?" Sophia's voice went deadly quiet when I told her about the ashes. "Aunt Sophia, I need help. I can't stay here anymore, but I need to make sure this never happens to anyone else. Pack your things, mind ya, I'm driving down tonight." The second call was to my mother's best friend Carmen, who ran a grief counseling support group at the community center. "Catalina, honey, what you're describing isn't just cruel, it's traumatic. Have you documented any of this?" "What do you mean?" "Photos, recordings, anything that shows the pattern of behavior. Because what Brenda is doing has a name. It's called disenfranchised grief, when someone's right to grieve is denied or minimized. And there are legal protections for that, especially when it comes to disposal of human remains." I spent the rest of the day quietly taking pictures. The empty spaces where Mom's things used to be. The mantelpiece where her urn had sat, now decorated with Brenda's tacky ceramic cats. The kitchen windowsill where Mom's herb garden had thrived, now empty because Brenda said plants were too much work. When Brenda went to her book club that evening, I went into her room and found garbage bags full of my mother's belongings that she hadn't bothered to donate yet. Photo albums, jewelry, the quilt my grandmother had made for my parents' wedding. All of it destined for the dump. I rescued what I could and loaded it into my car. Dad came home while I was carrying the last box. What's all this? He asked, looking confused. Mom's things. The ones Brenda was throwing away. His face fell slightly, like he was remembering something he'd been trying to forget. Catalina, we talked about this. Brenda is my wife now. She deserves to make this place her home. And what about Mom? Doesn't she deserve to be remembered in the home she helped build? Your mother is gone, sweetheart. I miss her too, but we have to move forward. Moving forward doesn't mean forgetting, Dad. It doesn't mean throwing away every sign that she existed. He was quiet for a long moment. What do you want me to do? Brenda threatens to leave every time we argue about this. I can't lose another person I love. That's when I understood. Dad wasn't choosing Brenda over Mom's memory. He was choosing the illusion of safety over the risk of being alone again. He was so terrified of facing another loss that he'd rather let Brenda erase our past than risk her walking away. Dad, I said gently, if someone threatens to leave you for honoring your first wife's memory, maybe they're not the right person to spend your life with. But I could see in his eyes that he wasn't ready to hear that truth. Aunt Sophia arrived at midnight, and we loaded the rest of Mom's rescued belongings into her SUV. She took one look at the house, at the cold modern furniture that had replaced Mom's warm, cozy pieces, and shook her head. Your mother would hate what this place has become, she said quietly. The next morning, Brenda discovered that her project of erasing my mother had hit a snag. Where are all the boxes I put in the spare room? She demanded at breakfast. I took them, I said calmly, eating the eggs Dad had made, the same way Mom taught him when they were newlyweds. Those things are cluttering up my house. I want them gone. They're gone. I took them to someone who will actually appreciate them. Brenda's face turned red. You had no right. I had every right. Those were my mother's belongings, and I'm her next of kin. Your father is her next of kin, and he agreed with my decision. I looked at Dad, who was studying his coffee like it contained the secrets of the universe. Did you, Dad? Did you specifically agree to throw away Mom's ashes? The silence stretched between us like a chasm. I thought we were just talking about redecorating, he said finally. Human remains aren't home decor, Dad. That afternoon, I met with Carmen and 2 other counselors from the grief support group. They'd agreed to help me with something I'd been planning since my phone calls yesterday. Are you sure about this? Carmen asked. It's going to cause a lot of family drama. Good, I said. Some drama is necessary. We went to the house when I knew Brenda would be there alone. Dad was at work, just like every weekday afternoon when Brenda did most of her redecorating and purging. I knocked on the door with my witnesses behind me. Catalina, what is this? Brenda looked nervous seeing the group of professional-looking women on her doorstep. This is an intervention, I said, for someone who doesn't understand the difference between redecorating and emotional abuse. Carmen stepped forward. Mrs. Brenda Martinez, I'm Carmen Rodriguez from the County Grief Counseling Center. We've received reports of concerning behavior regarding the disposal of human remains and personal effects belonging to a deceased family member. Brenda's face went white. I don't know what she told you, but... May we come in? The third woman, Dr. Patricia Walsh, was a family therapist who specialized in blended family dynamics. We'd like to discuss some resources that might help your family navigate this difficult situation. For the next hour, they educated Brenda about grief, about the psychological impact of erasing a deceased parent's presence, about healthy ways to blend families without destroying existing bonds. Brenda tried to defend herself at first, claiming she was just trying to help the family move on. But when Dr. Walsh explained the long-term psychological damage that disenfranchised grief could cause, especially to young adults who were still processing their loss, Brenda began to understand the gravity of what she'd been doing. I didn't realize, she said finally, looking genuinely shaken. I thought I was helping. The road to trauma is paved with good intentions, Carmen said gently. But there are better ways to create new family traditions without destroying old ones. They left Brenda with reading materials, contact information for family counseling services, and a very clear understanding that throwing away human remains was not just cruel. It was potentially illegal depending on local laws. When Dad came home that night, he found Brenda in tears at the kitchen table, surrounded by pamphlets about grief counseling and healthy-to-family integration. What happened here? He asked. I think I've been hurting Catalina, Brenda said quietly, and hurting your memories of Elena. I didn't understand what I was doing. Dad sat down beside her, and for the first time in 2 years, they had a real conversation about how to honor the past while building a future together. A week later, I got a call from Dad. "Catalina, would you come over for dinner on Sunday? Brenda wants to talk to you about something." I almost said no, but something in his voice made me curious. When I arrived, I found the living room transformed again, but this time, it was different. Mom's urn was back on the mantelpiece, surrounded by a few of her favorite photos. The ugly ceramic cats were gone, replaced by one of Mom's rescued vases holding fresh flowers. "I went to Goodwill," Brenda said quietly when she saw me looking around. "I bought back as many of your mother's things as I could find. The vases, some of the decorative pieces. I know it's not everything, but..." She gestured toward the mantelpiece. "I realize this house doesn't need fresh energy. It needs balance. Your mother's love built something beautiful here. I want to add to that, not erase it." Dad wrapped his arm around my shoulders. "We also signed up for family counseling. All three of us, if you're willing." I looked around the room, at the blend of old and new, at my mother's memory finally being honored alongside Brenda's presence, at my father looking more like himself than he had in years. "I'm willing," I said. 6 months later, we were sitting around the same kitchen table, but everything was different. Brenda had learned to cook some of Mom's recipes with my help. Dad had started telling stories about Mom again, sharing memories instead of hiding from them. And I had learned that sometimes the worst betrayals can become the catalyst for the most important conversations. The urn never moved from the mantelpiece again, but around it, slowly and carefully, we built something new. A family that could honor the past while embracing the future. And every morning when Dad sat in his chair with his coffee, he would glance at Mom's photo and smile, just like he used to when she was sitting beside him. Some fresh energy, it turned out, comes not from erasing the past, but from learning to live with it beautifully.
2 weeks, Jerry says, engine noise hissing under his words, just to land on my feet. My name is Lisa Horton. I'm 32. I work the front desk at a community clinic in Kettering, Ohio, and I own a small 2-bedroom ranch I bought 3 years ago. My older brother Jerry is 35 and freshly divorced. Our mum Audrey is 61. Our dad Randall is 63. They raised us on the idea that family helps first and figures out details later. So I stare at my living room, brown couch, folded throw blanket, the coffee table I inherited from Grandma, and say, yes. He pulls up that same Tuesday night, February 20th, headlights washing across my front window. He comes in with a duffel slung over one shoulder and a plastic grocery bag looped over his wrist. The bag clinks with 2 beers and something that turns out to be breath mints. He looks thinner than the last time I saw him. He doesn't take off his coat. "Thanks," he says, a half smile that works on waitresses and landlords. "You're a lifesaver." "I've got the couch made up," I say. "Sheets are clean, blankets on the arm." We eat pizza off paper plates and pretend to care about a basketball game neither of us is following. He mentions lawyers once and then avoids eye contact. I don't press. I hand him an extra pillow. He falls asleep with the TV on low. I turn off the lamp and try to sleep with the glow under my bedroom door. The first nights are like that, quiet. He wakes up early and leaves a coffee ring on the counter. He stacks his duffel under my coffee table like it lives there and keeps his charger plugged into the outlet by the couch. He showers quick. He's polite in the way people are when they don't want to owe you anything. Loads the dishwasher once, wipes down the stove after bacon, holds the door for me when I'm juggling my bag and lunch. I tell myself I can absorb 2 weeks. On Thursday, I text Mom. "Jerry's here for a bit," she replies. "Good, be kind, he's hurting." Dad sends a thumbs up. I can hear them on speakerphone telling him he'll bounce back, saying my house is a soft place to land. I want it to be. By day 5, he's found the spare key bowl by the door and claims a spot for his key fob. By day 7, he borrows my car vacuum and leaves the cord coiled on the porch. On day 8, he asks if he can use my laundry because the laundromat eats quarters. I say yes because it's not a big deal, because it's just 2 weeks. On day 10, March 1st, I come home from work to the beep of my thermostat. He's standing under the vent, hands out like he's testing rain. "What's up?" I say, hanging my keys. "Your place runs cold," he says, tapping the thermostat again. "I bumped it to 70. You'll thank me." "I usually set it to 66 when I'm at work," I say. "It's fine, I promise." 66? He laughs like I've told a joke. "You're a penguin." I shrug and go to my room to change, tell myself not to make a thing out of it, and tap the thermostat back to my normal after he gets in the shower. That night, the furnace kicks on and off like it's got something to prove. I put on socks. The days blur in that slow, ordinary way. I go to the clinic, check in patients who forgot their insurance cards, answer calls, print forms. I come home to Jerry on my couch watching clips on his phone, volume up. He says he's sending resumes. I don't ask to see them. He tells me he'll Venmo me for groceries, and I nod even though we haven't discussed groceries. He's charming when it benefits him. He carries my groceries in once and makes a show of it. But he's allergic to specifics. I'm the one who lives on specifics. Appointment times, co-pay amounts, the exact place I like the thermostat. I remind myself, 2 weeks. On day 12, he invites me to watch a movie and then falls asleep 20 minutes in, snoring gently while the credits roll. I wash the pizza cutter and put the rest in the fridge. I place his phone charger on the coffee table, neat, like that will make the house feel like mine. When our parents call on Sunday afternoon, March 3rd, I put them on speaker while I fold towels. Mum's voice is soft. "How's our boy?" "He's fine," I say. "Quiet." "Good," she says. "Be patient." These things take time. Dad says, "Good, you're helping," and clears his throat like that's the end of his leadership on the matter. I circle the day on my paper calendar when 2 weeks will be up. Tuesday, March 5th. It looks small in ink. On day 14, he comes out of the bathroom with a towel over his head and steam following him down the hall. He opens a cabinet above the washer and looks around like my house is a store. "Hey, Liz," he calls, standing in the doorway in clean socks. "Where do you keep the spare pillows?" I'm rinsing a mug. "Why?" He grins, casual, like he's asking for salt. "For when a buddy crashes." The buddy arrives the same night he asks about pillows. A knock at 9:30, a gust of cold, and a guy in a baseball cap says, "Yo," like my living room is a bar he's been to before. Jerry waves him in with the easy confidence of someone who doesn't wonder who's on the deed. "I told him he could crash," Jerry says to me. "Just for tonight." "Okay," I say, because the 2 weeks end today, and picking a fight over a pillow feels small compared to the bigger thing I'm avoiding. I hand over the extra pillow from my linen closet and watch them turn the couch into a fort. They turn the TV up and laugh at YouTube clips. At 11:58, I brush my teeth, put in earplugs, and tell myself I can sleep through anything. At 12:40 a.m, the washing machine starts thumping. Not the gentle kind, the off-balance, heavy denim thud, thud, thud that makes the floor vibrate. I stare at the ceiling in the blue dark and breathe like I'm doing a blood pressure reading. It goes through rinse, spin, another load. The dryer hums. The vent rattles in the hall. At 6:10, I make coffee and open the pantry. The cereal box is back in place but light, just chaff and dust. The coffee bag is folded crooked and empty. There's an empty energy drink can on the counter with a wet ring underneath. Jerry's buddy is face down on the couch. Jerry is sprawled on the rug with my throw blanket half on, half off. I write a text to Jerry from the kitchen. "Need quiet on work nights. Also, if you finish something, please replace it." He doesn't respond. I tuck the note away in my head. At the clinic, my computer screen swims. Tessa leans on my desk with her water bottle and looks at me over the rim of her glasses. "You good?" "Just didn't sleep," I say, sliding insurance cards back to a teenager with a sprained wrist. Tessa knows about Jerry and the broad strokes. "Put a lock on your coffee," she says, half joking. "Maybe I will," I say, and it comes out flatter than I mean it to. At lunch, I open the utility portal and look at the usage graph. The bar for March spikes taller than February's, even though it's barely begun. I take a photo with my phone, the number bright and rude. I open a new note and title it, House Costs, Jerry. I type dates, 3 to 5 midnight laundry, 3-6 cereal, coffee gone. I add a line, thermostat bumped to 70 on 3x1. I attach the screenshot of the usage chart. It feels petty and necessary at the same time. When I get home, the buddy is gone. The couch smells like cologne. The cereal box is in the trash, and there's a new one on the counter. Wrong brand, sugar-crusted around the bag. Jerry grins at me like he's solved something. I replaced it, he says. Thanks, I say, and pour it into a bowl. It tastes like frosting and regret. I eat 2 bites and slide the bowl into the sink. That night I say, Hey, can we keep it down after 10? I'm up at 6. He looks up from his phone, thumb hovering. Liz, you're uptight, girl. Chill. It was one night. It's a work night, I say, and the laundry at 1 in the morning. It needed to be done, he says, like he's explaining gravity. Laundromat's closed by then. I'll be quiet. He turns back to his screen. On Thursday, Mum calls while I'm stirring pasta. How's our boy? He had a friend over, I say. They did laundry at 1 a.m. A pause, the kind where she picks her words. Be kind, he's hurting. Divorce scrambles people. I'm kind, I say. I'm also tired. Just breathe, she says. He won't be there forever. I put her on speaker and take a photo of the power bill that hits my inbox, the amount high enough to make me blink twice. I add it to the note. I add the pasta to the strainer and steam fogs my glasses. Friday, I'm at the clinic with a headache that sits behind my eyes. A man argues about a copay, and I smile until my cheeks ache. Tessa slides me half her granola bar and taps my desk. Weekend plan? Laundry, I say, and we both laugh too hard. Saturday morning, I mop the kitchen and find lint that looks like someone emptied a pocket on my floor. I wipe a smear off the fridge. I stack my receipts by the microwave and take a photo of those too. It's not a spreadsheet, but it's not nothing. That night, Jerry is in the living room, FaceTiming someone, volume high, voice pitched up in that performative way people get when they need to be the funniest person in the room. I brush my teeth and go to bed at 10. At midnight he's still talking. At 12:30 the toilet runs loud. At 1:10 the washing machine starts again. I roll over and stare at the wall, count the thuds, add the date to my phone note in the dark. On Sunday, I tell him again, please, work nights, quiet. He lifts a hand without looking up. Chill, Lisa, seriously, you're wound tight. I go to bed early. When I wake on Monday, the house is set to 68. The thermostat reads hold in block letters. The vents roar. The heat runs like a freight train. On Monday, my phone pings at 5:42 a.m. with a low balance alert. The heat is roaring and the screen says the utility autopay posted overnight. I move 50 from savings to cover groceries and sit on the edge of my bed with my socks in my hand, awake in that deep, wired way that has nothing to do with rest. At the clinic, I yawn through the morning intake. Tessa clocks it immediately. You look like you slept in a dryer. Close, I say, rubbing the crease the mask left on my cheek. I'm talking to him tonight. Good, she says. Say a number. Don't apologise for the number. By Tuesday night, I've rehearsed it in my head enough times that the words line up. I ask Jerry to sit at the kitchen table, not the couch. I put water on the coaster in front of him and take my own chair like this is a normal adult conversation. I need to get specific about this, I say. Money and time. He drapes back like a bored teenager. Okay. You asked for 2 weeks, I say. It's been 3. I'm asking for 2 things. $200 toward the mortgage and half the utilities while you're here, and quiet after 10 on weeknights. He laughs, not a kindness laugh. An actual surprise bark like I told him a penguin fact. A bitter landlady. That's what we're doing. Not rent, I say, even though mortgage is rent in a different coat. Contribution, I'm not making money off you. I'm trying not to go negative because the bills went up. I can show you the usage. Lisa, he says like he's humouring me, you're charging your brother to sleep on a couch. That's wild. Jerry, I say, keeping my voice even, 250 utilities. You said you'd Venmo for groceries. You haven't. I've got receipts. I'm not mad. I'm asking. He shakes his head, grinning. You got real tight since you bought this place. I let silence sit between us, because arguing tone with someone who doesn't want to hear it is a hamster wheel. He picks up his phone and, still smiling, taps our family thread. He types fast. My screen lights up on the table. Jerry, imagine your kid charging you rent to sleep on her couch. Bitter landlady energy. Wow. Mum, Jerry. Dad, typing bubble appears, then disappears. I don't answer the thread. I open a new text directly to Jerry, type slow, and read it twice before sending. Me, here's what I've paid while you've been here. Mortgage, paid 3+1. Electric, charge, gas, autopay, posted this week. Water, trash, last week. Groceries, coffee, cereal, eggs, milk, bread, etc. Receipts, $225, that, 311. I'm asking for $200 toward housing and half the utilities for March. Going forward, same on the 1st, quiet after 10 on weeknights. That's all. I attach photos, the usage graph, the bill emails, a handful of receipts fanned on my counter. I don't add commentary. I hit send. Under each photo, the tiny RID pops up with the timestamp. I take screenshots of that too and drop them in a new album on my phone labelled House, Jerry. Mum chimes in. Mum, Lisa, honey, he's in a hard place. Let's keep perspective. I type back, I am keeping perspective. I'm also paying for everything. This is what I can do. Dad reacts to my message with a thumbs up emoji. It's not a side, or maybe it is. Either way, it sits there like a shrug everyone can see. My face goes hot. Across from me, Jerry looks at his phone and then at me. You made a spreadsheet? Are you trying to impress Tessa or something? It's a note on my phone, I say. This is me telling you what I need. He stands up, pushes the chair back with his knee. I'll figure it out, he says, vague as weather. I'll have some money next week. Okay, I say, by Friday works. The next morning, there's no Venmo. At lunch, Tessa watches me pick at a yogurt and says, get it in writing. Text is fine. You already did the hard part. That afternoon, another ding from the family thread. Jerry again. Jerry, I'll be at Sunday dinner. We can clear the air. Mum, good. Roast. 6 o'clock. I stare at the screen. Clear the air sounds like a plane flying very low. I text Mum privately. I'll be there. She replies, be kind. He's hurting. I go home and note the small things that have become my measure. The thermostat set to 69 again. The laundry basket by the washer already full. The box of cereal I didn't buy open on the counter. I take a photo of the thermostat, of the laundry basket, date stamps in the corner like a breadcrumb trail only I need to see. That night, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and get in bed at 10. In the quiet, I can hear my own heart slow down. I picture the kitchen table, Jerry's smirk, the way the thumbs up sat in the thread like permission and dismissal at the same time. I breathe and I decide, Sunday, I won't be vague. Tessa waits until the waiting room is empty before she leans on my desk. How'd Clear the Air go? It's this Sunday, I say. He announced it in the family thread like a press release. She snorts. Then stop asking permission. Start building a paper trail. You've basically been doing it anyway. At lunch, she wheels her chair over and pulls up the Montgomery County Clerk's website. See, they've got templates. Notice to leave premises, 30-day termination of tenancy. It's not eviction, yet. It's just you saying, this ends on this date. If you're serious, use it. I click, read, click again. The forms are plain and ugly, black text, blank lines. They look like authority even before words fill them. I email the PDFs to myself, then to my printer at home. Also, Tessa says, tapping my notebook, stop keeping it in your head. Itemize. Dates, amounts, those usage graphs you love. Water too. Ohio sends those quarterly. Get the portal log. I already took pictures, I say, and it sounds like a confession. Good. Print them. Put it in a folder. If you end up in front of someone who makes decisions, they want paper, not vibes. That night, my little printer chirps and spits out clean pages on my dining table. The 30-day notice with my address typed in, blank dateline waiting, my itemized list with columns I made in Word, date, what, amount, proof, screenshots of the electric tar gas usage chart with the spikes circled in red, water usage pulled from the city portal showing gallons leaping higher on laundry days. I write in neat pen, 2:20 move-in, 3 to 5 buddy overnight and plus midnight laundry, 3:11 autopay posted, 3:12 ask, 200 Tolan plus £1.2 utilities plus quiet. I slide everything into a manila folder and tape a pen inside the cover. The folder looks thin and too tidy for what it has to carry. Sunday comes, roast at 6. Mum texts a heart and see you soon. I tuck the folder into my tote. Jerry beats me there by 5 minutes and opens the front door like it's his childhood home, which it is. He kisses Mum's cheek, claps Dad on the shoulder. When I step in, he breezes, "Hey, bitter landlady," like it's a bit now, not an insult. I keep my voice even. "Hi, Mum, it smells good." At the table, he talks about jobs he almost got and a truck he's thinking about buying. Mum passes the green beans. Dad asks me about the clinic and I say, busy. When the mashed potatoes start their slow circle, he turns to me, grin fixed. "You know what's wild," he says, like he's starting a story. "Charging family rent for a couch, heartless Liz." Mum's fork touches china. The clock ticks. My neck gets hot. I reach into my tote and feel the folder's cardboard spine under my fingers. I set it on the table, smooth the edge, and flip it open. I put the notice and the list next to the gravy boat. He blinks at the papers, then at me. I can feel Mum's eyes on my hands. I don't say anything yet. I let the paper sit like a third person at the table. After dinner, I drive home with that odd, steady feeling that shows up when I finally do the thing I've been rehearsing. I put the folder on my coffee table and add the thermostat photo from that morning. 69 again, hold in block letters. And then weeks turn into more weeks. Jerry doesn't leave. He promises money next Friday, and then after the 1st, and then once this check clears. I keep my folder current. April's bill arrives. I print it. I circle the K-robot spike that lines up with the 12:40 a.m. thump I wrote down. May's water statement posts. I print the portal page that shows gallons by day, little bars jumping on weekends. I staple receipts for coffee, cereal, milk, eggs. I add dates to the list, 4:14, laundry 1 a.m, 5:2, thermostat 70, 5 to 19, Mum. Be kind again, 6 to 7, overnight guest, 6:30, no Venmo. Sundays come and go. Sometimes I skip. When I go, Jerry is charming as a coat rack. All yes ma'am to Mom, nods at Dad. If Dad says anything, it's let's not fight. I keep my mouth clean and my pen full. By July, the folder bulges. I flip to a new sheet and handwrite the monthly totals so I don't have to add them in my head. 3, 148. 4, 201. 5, 236, 6, 189, 7, 208. I don't write the sum yet. I know I'll have to say it out loud. I don't want to practice. Tessa brings me a fresh pack of binder tabs like it's a birthday present. For when you're ready to make it courtroom pretty, she says. I'm not trying to go nuclear, I say. You're not, she says. You're being clear. On a Sunday in late August, Mum texts roast and hearts again. I go. The air is heavy with gravy and heat and the old way we eat together. Jerry's face is smooth and smug. He doesn't know what's in my bag, and that makes me feel, for the first time in months, like I have something solid in my hands. He gets his line in early, before the potatoes make it around. "She's still got me on a meter like I'm a tenant," he says, laughing toward Mum. Heartless. I don't answer him. I slide the folder out and open it. I place the pages next to the gravy boat so they're unavoidable. At the top of the notice, in firm pen, I write today's date. In the corner of my paper calendar at home, day 31 is already circled. Mum's roast is sitting on a trivet, steam curling up like a cartoon. The folder is already on the table next to the gravy boat, edges squared with the placemat. Jerry's still smiling at his own joke. I open the folder and take out the top page. "I'm going to read this," I say, calm like I'm confirming a birth date at my desk. "Utilities only, 6 months. Mum's fork touches her plate. Dad looks at his glass. Jerry leans back, eyes on me like this is performance art. "March 148, I say. April 201, May 236. June 189, July 208, August 198. I keep my voice steady. Total 1,180, utilities only. No one pretends to chew. The clock in the kitchen clicks like a metronome. I put the second page on top, the notice with my address typed in. The date line at the top has today's date in my neat hand. The line that says must leave by has a date 30 days from today. I slide it to Jerry. "This is a 30-day notice to end your stay at my house," I say, plain. "You can read it now or take it with you. 30 days from today, I expect you moved out. On day 31, if you haven't moved or paid the utilities you owe, I'm filing in small claims. That's my plan." He smirks exactly the way I knew he would. "You're not going to do that," he says, like we're in on a joke together. "You're making a scene to impress Tessa and the audience." He gestures toward our parents as if they're a crowd. Mom exhales. "Jerry," she says, "Lisa." She says our names like they're both scoldings and prayers. "This is dinner. Can we not do this at the table?" "It is dinner," I say, and I keep my hands folded so I don't shake. "And I'm telling you what I'm doing so there's no confusion." Dad clears his throat, default setting. "Maybe talk later," he says, to the room, to no one. Jerry glances at the numbers again and laughs like they're made up. "You got KW in here," he says. "Who even cares about KWH?" "The company that bills me," I say. Mum reaches for the gravy like she can change the subject with gravy. "Mashed potatoes are getting cold," she says, bright and brittle. "Jerry, pass your sister the rolls." "I'm good," I say. My voice sounds normal. Inside, everything is tight and humming. I gather my papers back into the folder, leave the notice in front of him. "You can keep that," I add. He waves it away with 2 fingers. "I'll figure it out." "By the date on the paper," I say. I stay long enough to drink a glass of water and help Mum wrap leftovers I didn't touch. She squeezes my hand at the door. "You didn't have to do it like that," she whispers. "I did," I say, so everyone heard the same thing. On the drive home, I grip the steering wheel at 10 and 2 because my hands won't stop shaking. The folder rides shotgun like a person. A country song about trucks and losing things does its best to make a metaphor of me. I turn it down and keep driving. By the time I pull into my driveway, the humming inside has mellowed. The relief sits in my chest like a weight that finally dropped instead of staying just out of reach. Jerry's car is in its usual spot under my streetlight. When I open my front door, the kitchen cabinet bangs so hard the plate stack rattles. He moves through the kitchen with the force of a windstorm, drawers opening and shutting like punctuation. "Can you not slam things?" I ask, setting my keys on the hook. He swings the fridge door shut, hard. "Chill, Lisa. Seriously." I look up at the thermostat. He's set it to 64, hold stamped in grey letters across the screen. The vent in the hall whooshes, the kind of cold that makes the back of your throat ache. I take out my phone and take a photo of the thermostat, the screen glowing in the dark. He opens the freezer just to close it again, harder. I walk down the hall to my room, shut the door quietly, and sit on the edge of my bed with the folder open. I add tonight to my list in small, tight print: dinner read aloud, notice delivered, cabinet slammed, thermostat 64, hold. I take a short video from the doorway of the kitchen drawer being yanked, then set my phone on my dresser and breathe. In the hallway, the vent keeps roaring. I pull my paper calendar off the nail and lay it on my blankets. The circle I drew around day 31 weeks ago is in pencil, tentative. I take a red pen from my nightstand and go over it until the ring is thick and sure. I write under it, file. I turn off my lamp. In the cold air under my own blanket in my own room, I feel the smallest click of something locking in, not the door, that will come later. Just me, closing on a decision and not wriggling out of it. Outside my window my street is quiet. Inside, the hum of the vent is a thing I can document and pay for, and soon make stop. Day 31 lands on a Tuesday. His shoes are by the door like nothing is happening. I make coffee from the stash I keep in my bedroom now, the single-cup packets Tessa calls emergency rations. I shower, dress and print everything again, the itemised list with the 6 months and the total, 1,180, screenshots of the usage spikes, the bills with dates circled, the text where I asked for $200 and half the utilities, the read receipts. I add a simple cover page, claim for unpaid utilities. Defendant, Jerry Horton. Plaintiff, Lisa Horton. Amount, $1,280 plus court costs. I drive to the Montgomery County Courthouse with my folder buckled into the passenger seat. The small claims window opens at 8:30. The clerk is a woman my mum's age with a cardigan and a no-nonsense cadence. Type of claim? She asks. Money owed for utilities, I say. I have an itemisation. Good, she says, like she gets a lot of vibes and not enough itemisations. She hands me a 1-page complaint form. Fill this out. Names, addresses, amount, brief statement. We serve by certified mail unless you prefer personal service. Personal is extra. I print carefully. Statement. Brother moved into my residence on 2/20. I provided housing and utilities. He agreed to contribute, but did not. Utilities increased significantly. I requested $200 toward mortgage and 1 to 2 utilities. He did not pay. Total utilities for March-August owed $180. I check the box for personal service and pull out my debit card. That's $75 for filing, the clerk says. Service is $35. I pay and slide the stack of proofs across to her. She flips through, nodding once at the tabs. You'll get a case number right now, hearing date in the mail. If personal service doesn't take, we try certified. She stamps the top copy with blue ink. The thunk is louder than I expect. Case number, CVI, 4 digits I immediately type into my phone note. Next, she calls, and I step aside with my receipt in my hand. Back at the clinic, I tell Tessa I did it. She grins. There you go, that's a spine. Clark says they'll try personal service first, I say. I checked that box. Good, she says. He can't pretend he didn't know. When I get home at 5, there's a white sedan idling by the curb. A man in a windbreaker with a clipboard walks up my short path. Lisa? He asks. Yes. I'm serving your case, he says, polite and brisk. Is Jerry here? He's inside, I say. Door's unlocked. We both can hear the TV. The process server knocks twice. Firm. No answer. He knocks again. I stand to the side, heart tapping under my shirt. After a minute, the volume goes up like that's a strategy. Okay, the server says. He pulls a large envelope from his bag, slides in the summons and a copy of the complaint, and tapes it to the door at eye level. He takes a photo with his phone. This is residential service, he says, also mailing a copy, court dates on there. Thank you, I say. He nods and leaves. I text Tessa a photo of the envelope on my door. She sends back a flexed bicep. At 6:40, my phone lights up with Jerry's name. Jerry, I'll be out of your hair by morning. Me, okay, please leave your key on the counter. No apology, no money. Just the pivot I expected once the blue stamp showed up with tape. At 8, a pickup I recognise from high school shows up. Andy Owens hops out, all elbows and baseball cap, the same as when he used to shoulder tap for beer at the gas station. He doesn't make eye contact with me. He and Jerry carry out the life Jerry has made in my living room, the duffel that used to live under my coffee table, a laundry basket filled with rolled T-shirts, a plastic bin of cords, the wrong brand cereal half full, 2 pairs of boots, a bundle of hangers, his pillow. He unhooks his charger from my outlet and pockets it like it's a delicate instrument. I stand by the kitchen doorway and keep my hands to myself. Key on the counter, I say once, in a tone I use at work when I'm directing traffic without sounding like a sign. Chill, he says, without looking at me. He sets the key down like it burns. He takes the envelope off the door, skims it, and snorts. You really did it. I really did, I say. Andy lifts his chin at me in a not quite apology, not quite greeting. We good? He asks Jerry. We're good, Jerry says, like that sentence wipes everything clean. The door closes. The truck doors thud. The street goes quiet. I turn my thermostat back to 66 and hit cancel on the hold. The heat and air settle into the steady hum I remember. My phone rings. Mum. You didn't have to go nuclear, she says, skipping hello. I didn't, I say. It's small claims. He can come to court and sort the money out. I'm not kicking him out with nothing. I gave him 30 days. She sighs, a long exhale that's more about the picture in her head than the facts. He's hurting, she says. You know he is. I know, I say, and I'm paying the bills. I can do both, know he's hurting and not carry it for him. There's a pause where I can hear Dad say something low in the background. Mum softens 1 degree. What's the date? She asks. It's on the paper, I say. They taped it to the door. He took it with him. You can call him. We hang up without a solution. I pick up the summons from the counter. There's a second copy the server slipped through the mail slot after taping and set it on my coffee table. The case number feels like a spine down the page. I put my red pen next to it. The living room is suddenly larger, as if the air has moved back into the corners. In the quiet, I do one small practical thing. I take the spare key out of the bowl by the door and drop it into a drawer I can lock. Then I sit on my couch, and listen to the nothing. The paper sits there like a promise. 4 weeks after the paper went on my door, I sit on a wooden bench outside a small courtroom with my blue binder on my lap. Tessa texted me a fist and "You got this," and then a reminder to breathe. I flip the binder open and check the tabs again. Timeline, bills, usage graphs, texts, photos. It feels like overkill until I remember the way the clerk smiled when she saw tabs. A bailiff opens the door and calls my case number and our names. Jerry is already inside, in a clean T-shirt and a jacket, hair combed like this is a job interview. He doesn't look at me. He looks at the ceiling and then at the empty counsel table, like this might play out on charisma alone. "Good morning," the judge says, settling into the chair. A plaque reads Tyrell Lewis. He looks like someone who reads instructions before assembling furniture. Small claims. Keep statements short. I need receipts, not speeches. I stand at the plaintiff table. Jerry stands at the other. The bailiff swears us both in. "Ms. Horton," Judge Lewis says, "what's your claim?" "Utilities," I say. "My brother moved into my house on February 20th. He said 2 weeks. He stayed 6 months. I asked him to contribute $200 toward housing and half the utilities. He didn't pay. My utility usage and bills increased while he was there. I'm asking for $1,180, utilities only, for March through August, plus the filing fee." The judge nods. "Proof?" I hand the binder over open to the timeline tab. This is a timeline with dates, I say. Move in, the night his friend stayed, and the midnight laundry, the day I asked for contributions by text, and the Sunday I delivered a 30-day notice. Next tab is bills with the amounts and dates circled. Next is usage graphs from the utility portal, K2028 spikes. Water usage from the city's portal, gallons by day, then the text messages where I asked for 200.5 utilities and he read them. I have screenshots of the read receipts and photos of the thermostat when it was set on hold at 69 and 64. He flips without hurrying, dragging a finger down the itemised list I typed up, pausing at the monthly totals I wrote in pen. 148, 201, 236, 189, 208, 198, he reads under his breath. He moves on to the texts. You asked for 200.5 utilities on March 12th. He read it. Yes. He looks at Jerry. Mr. Horton? Jerry leans in on his elbows. I tried to help, he says. I did things around the house. I replaced groceries. She's making this bigger than it is. We're family. I was there because of my divorce. Receipts, the judge asks. No change in tone. Proof of payment? Venmo, Cash App, checks, cash receipts for groceries, anything with dates? Jerry blinks. I mean, I didn't keep receipts for carrying groceries in, he says, smiling a little like that will soften the room. I bought cereal once, maybe twice. Do you have those receipts today? Judge Lewis asks. No. Did you pay any portion of the utilities? The judge asks. Any transfer to Ms. Horton? No, Jerry says, still trying that light, affable tone. I told her I would. Money was tight. I was hurting. I understand, the judge says, not unkindly. He turns the usage graphs toward him. This is March's spike? He taps the bar that climbs higher than February. Yes, I say, those nights line up with the laundry, midnight and 1 a.m., and when the thermostat was on, hold higher than I keep it. Ms. Horton, he says, you're claiming only the utilities, not housing. Utilities only, I say. I put the mortgage dates because that's when autopay hit, but I'm not asking for rent. He nods again and reads the 30-day notice I slid behind the texts. You gave notice in late August. He left after you filed. Yes, I say. He moved out the night the summons was posted. He puts the binder down, folds his hands. Mr. Horton, this is small claims. I look at agreements and money. She asked, in writing, for a contribution. You stayed, and the usage and bills increased. You did not pay. If you have proof you offset these costs, now is the time. Jerry's mouth opens, then closes. The silence has weight. In the back row, 2 people cough. The clock ticks. My stomach finally unclenches. All right, Judge Lewis says, pen moving. On the claim for utilities March through August, I award for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,180. Court costs of $75 are added. Judgment total, $1,255. He looks up. Payment arrangements are between the parties. If you do not pay, Ms. Horton can pursue collection. That's all for this case. The bailiff says, next, and it's already over. Jerry looks at me, surprise replacing the smirk he's worn for months. It's almost like he expected a lecture and not math. We step into the hallway where the fluorescent light hums. He keeps his eyes on the floor tiles. I'll figure it out, he mutters, the old vague promise that used to be enough. He walks away before I can nod. I sit on the bench and text Tessa, awarded, 180, plucky 75 tullons. She sends back fireworks and a line of exclamation points, then, proud of you. The clerk prints a copy of the judgment for me at the window. I tuck it into the binder and hold it to my chest for a second. It's not a parade, it's a stamped page that says the thing we all already knew. I walk out into the bright afternoon with a plan that doesn't require anyone's permission. The day after court, I stop at the hardware store on my way home and buy 2 new deadbolts keyed alike and a keypad lock for the front door. The guy in the aisle helps me pick a quiet window unit for my bedroom, an 8000 BTU with sleep mode in small letters on the box. I slide the receipt into my binder with the judgment like that makes it official. I'm not handy, but deadbolts are mostly screws and time. I prop the doors open, lay the new hardware on a towel and swap out the old locks with the radio on low. When the keypad beeps, I punch in a code I won't forget and delete the old habit of leaving a spare in the bowl by the door. I send Tessa a photo of the silver keypad catching late light. She sends back, "Look at you. The AC goes in next." I lift it 1 slow inch at a time, set it in the sash, and wedge the foam sides against the frame. It hums more like a refrigerator than a truck. I turn it on just enough to hear the compressor click and feel a clean ribbon of cool across my wrist. It's quiet enough that I can imagine sleeping with it and still hearing the rain. The binder, blue with tabs, gets a place on the shelf where I keep my appliance manuals and the folder with my house papers. It looks like it belongs there, boring in the best way. I put the stamped judgment in the front pocket where I can find it if I have to, but I hope I won't. That weekend I move my coffee back into the kitchen. It stays in the can. The cereal stays the same level from morning to night. The thermostat holds at the settings I pick without a fight, like a dog that finally learned to heel. I make pasta and eat it at my own table with my phone face down and no one FaceTiming 6 feet away. The quiet makes me aware of the small noises, the ice maker dropping a single cube, the refrigerator settling, the AC's soft tick when it cools and stops. Tuesday, a payment notification pings. $100 memo, utilities. I accept it and type back, received. Thank you. A week later, another 100, then 2 more over the next 6 weeks. He doesn't send the whole judgment. He doesn't bring it up. He doesn't call. In between the 3rd and 4th payment, a text lands like it had to get past several drafts. Jerry, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I put you in a bad spot and made it worse. I'm working on it. I stare at it for a long minute. It looks like he typed, deleted, and typed again until the words were plain. I reply, I appreciate the apology. I don't add anything about the balance. I don't ask questions I don't want the answers to. I cash the money and the apology and let both sit where they are. Mum invites me to Sunday dinner and doesn't add pep talks to the end of her texts. The first one after court, she hugs me in the doorway and packs leftovers into a bag like always. Roast, green beans, the rolls she buys because we pretend to eat fewer carbs. No one says court or rent or utilities. Dad asks, busy week? And I say, it'll pick up. And he nods. Jerry doesn't come. The second Sunday he does. He says hello like he's testing the word for cracks. We talk about the Bengals and nothing else. Mum squeezes my arm when I leave and calls me baby in a way that makes me feel 5 and okay. At home, I sleep with the AC on low just because I can. Cool air, quiet motor, the numbers on the little remote like a secret only I need to know. I replace the batteries in my smoke detector and finally oil the hinge on my bedroom door. The house breathes in time with me. It's warm when I want warm and cool when I want cool. Tessa and I eat lunch on a bench outside the clinic on a bright day. She passes me a granola bar and asks, "You writing your terms yet?" "I am," I say. I show her my screen, a 1-page PDF I made with headings she helped me pick. Temporary stay agreement. Dates, start we end. Contribution. Amount due on arrival. Utilities, half of monthly. Quiet hours 10 p.m. 6 a.m. Security deposit, $250, refundable if no damage or unpaid bills. House rules, thermostat, 6670, no overnight guests without permission, laundry by 9 p.m. signatures. We tweak a comma and save it to a folder called House. That evening, a cousin I like texts, "Hey random, could my friend crash with you for a week? She's having a rough time." I feel my old reflex, say yes and sort it out later, twitch in my hands. I take a breath, click the paperclip, and attach the PDF. I type, happy to help if these terms work. Deposit required before arrival. 3 dots appear, then disappear. A minute later, oh, let me show her, totally get it. I put my phone down and open a window. The neighbourhood smells like cut grass. A kid rides by on a too small bike and waves like kids do at anyone who waves back. I wave. Inside, the keypad on the front door blinks once and goes quiet. In my bedroom, the AC waits, the kind of hum that doesn't intrude, just keeps its promise. I don't keep score in my head anymore. I keep records where they belong and boundaries on paper that I'm willing to say out loud. The house doesn't feel like a test now. It feels like what I bought it to be, a place I can take care of, and a place that, finally, takes care of me right back.
If you need 60 days, I can do 60 days, I said, and I heard myself mean it before I could overthink the rest. My name is Taya. I'm 31. I own a small 2-bedroom bungalow on a quiet street, and I work the front desk at a pediatric clinic. My alarm goes off at 5:30 a.m., so I can be at my desk by 6:45. I like my coffee at the same time every day. I like sleep more than almost anything. Charlie is my younger brother. He's 28 and was laid off from a warehouse job the week before they rolled their suitcases in. Brianna, his wife, is 27, fast with a joke and the kind of upbeat that bounces around a room. They called me on a Tuesday night, March 1st, and asked if they could use my basement for 2 months, contribute $200 toward utilities on the 15th of each month, and then be gone by April 30th. We just need a soft landing, Charlie said. Mom said you'd probably say yes. I did. I walked them around the side of the house to the basement door with the keypad. It's a smart lock tied to my phone. The basement isn't fancy. One big room with an area rug, a futon, a mini fridge tucked under the stairs, and a small bathroom with a shower stall that runs a little cold if you're not quick. There's a closet where I keep seasonal stuff and some extra linens. It's clean, and it's separate enough that people can feel like they have space. I'm up early for the clinic, I said while I showed them the keypad and how the deadbolt sticks unless you pull the door tight. So, can we keep laundry and showers before 10 p.m.? And try for quiet after that? The floors are old. Sound carries. Totally, Brianna said, like I'd asked them not to host a marching band. She wiggled the code into the keypad, and the little green light blinked. We'll be ghosts? Boo. Charlie hugged me. Thank you, Tay. 2 months, $200 on the 15th. We'll be out before your rhododendrons bloom. They already bloom in April, I said, but I smiled. He knows things like that because we grew up with our mom planting them along every fence line she ever had. I pointed to a small dry erase board on the wall. I'm going to write the date we agreed on, April 30, just so we're on the same page. Brianna laughed. Our very own landlord. It was said like a joke, so I let it be one. Bean, my rescue mutt who thinks every footstep is a security risk, sniffed their duffel bags and wagged like we'd adopted 2 new humans. I told Bean we had not. The first week was easy. We split takeout from the Thai place on the corner, traded Netflix passwords, and argued over who got the last spring roll. Brianna washed their dishes without me asking. Charlie fixed the wobbly handle on my back gate with a screwdriver and a look of focus that reminded me of him as a kid, building towers of VHS tapes just to see how high they'd go. They were tired, but hopeful. I told myself this was exactly what family was for. You throw a cushion under someone while they figure it out. I wrote March 15th, $200 utilities on the dry erase board next to an uneven heart that Brianna drew. I didn't make a big deal of it. It was just a date on a wall in a house where we were being kind to each other. On March 12th, I texted Charlie a photo of Bean wearing a bandana they left on the stairs and asked, "Still good for the 15th?" He replied with a thumbs up and a, "Yep." On the 15th, I checked my banking app at the clinic during my lunch break, just to see if the transfer landed. Nothing. No notifications. I set my phone face down on the desk and helped a toddler pick a sticker after a vaccine. By the time I got home, Brianna had a pot of pasta on, the house smelled like garlic, and Charlie was in the basement applying to jobs on his laptop with a half-empty can of energy drink next to him. "Any luck?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe to give him a minute. "Got a second interview lined up," he said. "This one's promising. Warehouse manager, not just picking. I'll know by next week." "That's good." I kept it light. "Hey, reminder about the utilities. Were you going to transfer tonight or tomorrow?" "Tomorrow," he said, eyes on the screen. "I swear, my unemployment hits in the morning." Brianna popped up from the stairs, wooden spoon in hand. "Eat first, stress later," she said, waving me toward the kitchen. "I made too much." We ate. We laughed at a viral video. It was easy to let the day end on that note. At 10 p.m., after I loaded the dishwasher and flipped my porch light off, I sat on the edge of my bed with Bean's head in my lap and opened my banking app again. Still nothing. I stared at the zero, like maybe if I blinked slow, it would change numbers. "It's just a late transfer," I told myself and set a reminder for the morning. The dryer kicked on at 2:07 a.m., a low rumble under my feet, and Bean barked like an intruder had shouldered past the back door. I blinked at the ceiling, did the tired math, 3 hours until my alarm, and slid out of bed to shush the dog. The sound rolled steady. Spin, thump, spin. Someone dropped the back door on their way in. The frame shivered. In the morning, I poured coffee and waited for their footsteps. Brianna came up first, hair in a top knot, pajama pants dragging. Charlie trailed behind her, hoodie up, eyes grainy. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice easy. "Quick thing about last night. Could we do laundry before 10? The sound comes right through my floor." Brianna laughed, not mean, just automatic. "We'll be mice, tiny ones." "I appreciate it," I said, and meant it. I handed Charlie a mug. "Cream's in the fridge." He took it, nodded, reached to scratch Bean's ears. "Sorry about the door. The deadbolt sticks. You have to pull it tight." I mimed it. It's an old house. By noon, I was at my desk at the clinic trying to convince a printer to like me, but my phone buzzed with the reminder I set the night before. Check for utility transfer. I tapped my banking app, still zero. I typed, "Any update on the $200," and deleted it. I put the phone face down and called the next patient. That week settled into a pattern I hadn't really planned on. I'd come home to a damp towel on the bathroom floor and little drifts of rice on the counter from takeout. The shower ran longer, the mini fridge in the basement hummed, and then my upstairs fridge emptied twice as fast. A gallon of milk disappeared in 2 days. I found my cereal box folded shut with more air than flakes inside. On Wednesday, I stood in front of the open pantry, holding the empty cereal box like it might refill itself. Brianna came up the stairs, her phone lit in her hand. "Hey," I said, "if you finish something, can you just write it on the board? Or give me a heads up? I went to pour breakfast and—" She grinned, bumped her shoulder into mine. "Say less. We'll grab more when we do a run. Or we can all just use whatever and keep a list. Communal pantry vibes." "Cool," I said, and then heard myself add, "Sorry if I sounded weird about cereal." She waved it off. "You're good." She tossed the empty box and left the pantry door open. I closed it. That night, the back door closed lightly. Progress. But at 1:54 a.m., the dryer kicked on again. Bean did a low growl this time, then dropped his head back down when I told him we were safe. The next morning, I set my mug down and tried again. "Laundry before 10, I said. "And dishes rinsed would help too. I don't want food in the sink overnight. And towels, if you could hang them up so they actually dry." "We got you," Brianna said. She tapped the fridge magnet with the dry erase board. "Put it here, make it official." I uncapped a marker and wrote 3 short lines: "Laundry before 10 p.m., rinse dishes, hang towels." Underneath that, I wrote March 15th, $200 utilities, and underlined it because it was still sitting there like a dare. That afternoon, my water utility sent one of those "your usage is higher than usual" emails with a little blue graph climbing. I clicked through the portal and stared at the bars like I could will them down. I live alone. My bill is predictable. This wasn't. At dinner, I kept it simple. "Hey, about the utilities. Did the unemployment hit?" Charlie twirled spaghetti on his fork, eyes flicking to me and away. There was a delay. Next week, I swear. I've got a second interview on Friday and a side job with Nate on Saturday. I'll square it then. Okay, I said, even though tomorrow had been the last answer. I wasn't going to fight over pasta. Just keep me posted. We will, Brianna said. Also, we got paper towels. The next night, I got home from a late vaccine clinic and found a trail of wet footprints from the basement door to the bathroom and back again. The shower ran another 20 minutes after that. I stood in the hallway with my lunch bag and remembered telling them the shower goes cold if you're not quick. Maybe they were just trying to warm up. On Saturday, I did a grocery run early, thinking I'd get ahead of the week. I added an extra loaf of bread and a big jar of peanut butter to the cart. At checkout, I pulled out a coupon I'd been saving and laughed at myself for feeling triumphant over saving $1. Back home, I labeled 2 shelves in the pantry with painter's tape, Taya and shared. I set an extra marker by the board. Brianna clocked it when she came up for coffee. Look at us, all organized, she said. I'm going to put our snacks on the bottom so Bean doesn't think he has rights. Bean already thinks he has rights, I said. He wagged like we were talking about him, which we were. That night, the dryer stayed off. The back door clicked gentle. Progress again. At 10:30, my phone buzzed with a Venmo notification, and my heart jumped. It was Ivy paying me back for concert tickets. I stared at the non-Charlie notification longer than it deserved, then opened my reminders and added a new one. Follow-up. Utilities. I set it to ping me every Monday until it was done, and I hated how it felt, like I was becoming a landlord I never meant to be. I came home on a Friday to balloons tied to my fence and a Bluetooth speaker pulsing bass from the backyard. There were 2 folding tables I didn't own set up on my grass, bowls of chips sweating grease spots onto paper, and people I'd never seen before playing cornhole with a board that looked borrowed. Brianna popped up from behind a cluster of bodies with a cupcake in her hand and a glitter 27 stuck in the frosting. Tiny birthday, she said, like she'd been waiting to say it. Isn't this cute? There were at least 20 people. My porch light was off, but the back of my house was lit like a stage. Bean did his high-pitched bark from the living room and then launched himself at the back door. I stepped inside, clipped his leash, and shut him in my bedroom so he wouldn't Houdini himself into the fun. I found Charlie by the grill, flipping burgers with a pair of tongs I recognized from my kitchen drawer. He grinned like everything was normal. You made it, he said. Grab a plate. What is this? I kept my voice low. It came out friendlier than I felt. Bree's friend's birthday, he said, like the answer was obvious. We didn't want to be in the basement with all these people. Fresh air, less chaos. We'll clean up. My phone buzzed. Scott from next door. Hey, noise is carrying. Any chance you can turn it down? Kid's bedtime. I texted back. I'll handle it. Sorry. I walked over to the speaker and turned the volume down. A few heads swiveled. Someone booed, soft and drunk. Brianna slid in next to me, cupcake gone, glitter still on her fingers. Scott texted, I said. Quiet hours are a thing, remember? Can you keep it low? Relax, she said. It's 9. We're wrapping up. It was 8:37. I didn't argue. I grabbed a trash bag from inside and started a loop. Cups, napkins, a plate with 2 bites of potato salad left to go feral. I stayed polite. I smiled at strangers in my yard and said, bathrooms inside, through the kitchen like a host. I kept Bean from losing his mind. At some point, someone set their cigarette on my fence and a little curl of ash dropped into the mulch. I got a water pitcher and poured a circle on it like a weirdo. Scott's living room light clicked off, then on again. I texted him, turning it down, sorry. He sent back a thumbs up. By 10, the group started thinning. The last of them left at 10:40, dragging a recycling bin I also didn't own out to the curb and leaving it there, top gaping. My yard looked like the morning after a tailgate. Sticky rings on the table, frosting smeared on the arm of one of my patio chairs. I stood in the dark and breathed, then went to find Brianna. In the future, I said, keeping it even, I need a heads up before we host 20 people at my house, and it can't be this loud. Scott's kids were going to bed. Brianna tilted her head like I'd spoken too fast. It was a tiny thing. We didn't think it would be a big deal. You know, community? It's my house, I said. It's a big deal to me. Okay, control freak, she said, smiling like that softened it. We cleaned. I looked at the fence where 3 cups were still nested by the posts. You didn't. Charlie raised his hands. We'll get it in the morning, he said. We're tired. I went inside and printed a 1-page list on my little inkjet. Quiet hours, 10 p.m., 6 a.m. Clean up your mess. Yard, kitchen, bathroom. $200. Due by the 15th. Under that, I typed, move out date, April 30th. I taped it to the fridge at eye level. I took a yellow highlighter and swiped it over April 30 until it glowed. In the morning, the cups were still against the fence. The recycling bin was overflowing with beer cans, and someone's greasy paper plate balanced on top. I took photos, not because I planned on using them for anything, but because the part of my brain that handles bills and schedules wanted a record. When Brianna wandered up around noon, she clocked the paper on the fridge and rolled her eyes. Seriously? She said. We're not in a dorm. Exactly, I said. We're adults. This is what adults do. Charlie came up behind her, read it, and laughed once. We'll be out before you know it, he said, like this was all temporary, therefore unimportant. No need to get official. I need it, I said. This helps me. He nodded without really agreeing, then asked if I wanted the last burger. I didn't. That night, they did bring the cups in. The fence looked like itself again. Brianna wiped the frosting off the patio chair with a damp paper towel while she scrolled her phone. I took that as a half win and made pasta for myself, purely out of spite. At 11:50, I was in bed, Bean already snoring when the washer beeped downstairs. At midnight, the dryer started up, the same low rumble under my ribs. I stared at the dark ceiling, counted backward from 100, and listened to the spin, thump, spin of people who said they'd be ghosts. I took my lunch in the park the last Sunday of March and called Ivy. Wind pushed at the edges of my sandwich wrapper. Kids shrieked at a soccer ball. I told her about the tiny birthday in my yard and the dryer droning like an airplane at midnight. If you want peace, put the terms in writing, she said. Not a sticky note, a real message. Clear date, what happens after, what you need. I already put April 30 on the fridge, I said. Paper on a fridge is for chore charts, she said. Text them, make it official, and stop apologizing for cereal. I laughed, because she was right. After my shift on April 1st, I typed a note in the Notes app, bolded the date, took a screenshot, and dropped it into a group text with Charlie and Brianna. Hi both, this is a 30-day notice, so we're all on the same page. Move-out date is April 30th. After that, I need the basement back. Quiet hours are 10 p.m., 6 a.m., laundry before 10 p.m., $200 utilities due on the 15th. I'm not mad, I just need my home back by April 30th. I watched the little bubbles. The screenshot showed up with the date, fat and black. Delivered. Then, read. 2 blue, seen stamps. No reply. Fine. I set my phone down, opened my laptop, and started a new folder on my desktop labeled Basement. I scrolled back and saved the email from the water company with the blue graph climbing. I took a photo of the last electric bill and circled the KW watch spike. I put my grocery receipts in a little stack on the counter and snapped pictures to turn into PDFs later because I knew I'd walk past them 3 times and knock them onto the floor if I left them there. Downstairs, the mini fridge hummed. Someone had propped open the bathroom door with a canvas shoe to air out steam. I tapped on the jamb and said, "Hey, heads up, I ordered some moving boxes. They'll be here later this week." Brianna leaned around the hall, hair wet, laughing at something on her phone. "We still have a month," she said. "You're so eager." "I like being ready," I said. "It makes things easier." She shrugged. "Okay, planner." That night, I added a line to the dry erase board. April 15th, $200 utilities. I underlined it. I didn't add a heart. The cousin chat started 2 days later. My phone lit up with a screenshot Ivy sent me. A new thread, titled Cousins. My name highlighted in Brianna's message. Tell me if I'm crazy, she wrote, but would you live under someone who tapes rules to a fridge and sends notices like she's a landlord? I feel like I'm living with a micromanager. I stared at the image long enough that my screen dimmed. I opened our group text again. 2 blue scene stamps still staring back. No reply. I typed, then deleted. Thanks for responding. I typed, then deleted. I'm just enforcing what we agreed. I locked my phone and made tea like that would make me immune. Mom called that evening. Honey, she said, soft and careful. Brianna says things are tense. They are, I said. I sent them a 30-day notice. April 30 is still the date. Can you be patient just a bit longer? She asked. Charlie's trying. He said there's a second interview. I am being patient, I said. I'm not moving the date. I can't do this indefinitely. She sighed, the way she sighs when a plant doesn't take to new soil on the first try. I know you're good. I know you are. Just be kind. I am. Kindness looks like being clear. After we hung up, I ordered a 10-pack of medium moving boxes and a roll of tape for pickup at the hardware store. On my way home the next day, I grabbed them, slid them into the basement closet behind the extra comforter, and shut the door. It wasn't a secret. It was a nudge to myself to follow through. That week, the little things kept their pace. The dryer did a midnight tour on Wednesday. The back door thudded twice on Thursday. I came home Friday to find the painter's tape labels I'd put on the pantry scuffed up from being peeled and stuck and peeled again. The shared shelf was half air. I added peanut butter and pasta to my grocery list without writing it on the board because I didn't want to start a whole meeting about a jar. I told Ivy I wasn't defending myself in the cousins' chat. Good, she said. Let your receipts talk. So I kept gathering. I took a short clip on my phone when the dryer thunked at 2:13 a.m., just the hum and the digital time on my stove in the foreground. I took a photo of the backyard after the party, the cups in the shadows along the fence line. I didn't send any of it. I just put it in the folder with the water graph and the electric bill and my grocery totals so my brain would stop cataloging it at 5 a.m. On Saturday afternoon, I was packing a box of holiday lights and snowman mugs into one of the new cartons when a text from Brianna blinked across my screen. Not to me, but the cousin's thread Ivy had forwarded. She's serious, with a photo of the boxes peeking out of the basement closet. So strict. I put the mug down, took a breath, and left the cousins alone. I opened the group text with Charlie and Brianna and sent one line. Thanks for reading my notice. I watched the screen. Read. Nothing else came through. The dry erase board turned into a countdown without me meaning it to. I crossed off days, wrote a neat 29, then 28, and tried not to narrate it out loud. The calendar on my phone did the same thing with little dots, reminders, bills, the 30th circled. On day 22, I came home to Charlie, sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open, a spreadsheet of shifts and pay rates pulled up like it could conjure cash. Any updates? I asked, setting my keys in the bowl. Maybe, he said. There's a place that wants me. Background checks in. Might start soon. They said they'll call tomorrow with a start date. Might start soon, I echoed. Okay. Do you have a plan for the 30th? Where you're going? Looking at a couple short-term places, he said. Nate said we could crash a week if we had to. Okay, I said again. I need the basement back on the 30th. He nodded, eyes back on the laptop. We know. That night, the space heaters downstairs hummed a little chorus, 2 of them by the futon pushing warm air around. The electric meter outside probably spun like a carnival ride. I stood on the landing and said, Hey, if you're cold, I've got an extra quilt. Brianna called up, We're good. The heaters are cozy. At 12:30 a.m., a sweet, smoky ribbon floated up my stairwell. Incense. Bean pricked his ears and grumbled. 30 seconds later, the smoke alarm in the hall let out a crisp single beep that made my shoulders hit my ears. I stepped into the hallway in a t-shirt, hair everywhere. No incense inside, please, I said down the stairs. The detector's touchy. It's just sandalwood, Brianna said. It's calming. It beeped, I said. I need sleep. The next morning, I added no incense upstairs or in the stairwell to the board and drew a little X through a stick drawing. I felt ridiculous and also like I might cry if one more thing chirped at me. On day 24th, Mom texted a photo of some new rhododendrons she was planting and wrote, "Proud of you both for managing." I sent a heart and didn't explain that managing meant I was counting how many times the back door slammed in a week. April 15th passed without a Venmo ping. On day 27, my reminders stacked up on my screen like a to-do list I couldn't finish. Follow-up utilities, confirm carpet cleaning. I still hadn't seen the $200, not for March, not for April. I stood in the kitchen with the fridge door open, cold air on my ankles, and told myself not to rehearse an argument. "Hey," I said to Charlie that night, catching him as he was plugging his phone into the charger. "We're 3 days out. What's your move-out plan?" "Bree's talking to a friend," he said. "Motel for a couple nights if we have to. Job should start next week. We'll be okay." "Okay," I said, steady. I booked carpet cleaners for the morning after. They'll be here at 8 a.m. His head jerked up. "You booked carpet cleaners?" "Yes. It's standard when people move out. I'm just trying to have the day go smoothly." He nodded, a little stiff. "We'll be gone." I called the carpet place at lunch the next day and gave them my card to hold the slot. "We'll text you when we're on the way," the woman said. I saved the appointment on my phone with two alerts, 7:30 and 7:55. That night, I started packing. Not their stuff, just the scattered pieces that had merged with mine. I collected their coats from the back of chairs and folded them into a medium box labeled Bree and Charlie jackets. I found their chargers draped off outlets and coiled them with rubber bands, slid them into electronics. Bathroom, hair products on the counter, a curling iron, a tangle of scrunchies. Bathroom, B. I taped the lids and stacked the boxes neatly by the door to the garage. I cleared a corner in the garage, moved my bike, swept, and laid down an old rug so the boxes wouldn't sit on concrete. I wanted no excuses later. No, "You lost our stuff," or "You mixed up our boxes." I took photos as I went, labels visible, just in case. Guilt tapped at my shoulder. It sounded like my mom's voice and a little like my own. Then exhaustion shoved it aside. I was tired of the late dryer, the incense, the sound of footsteps when the house was supposed to be asleep. I wanted to make coffee at 6 a.m. without stepping around someone's shoes. On day 29, I reminded them again. "Tomorrow is the 30th, I said at dinner. "I'll need keys back for the basement door. Code changes at 8 a.m. on the 1st. Brianna twirled pasta in a small bowl and didn't look up. "Noted," Charlie said. "We'll be out." On day 30, I worked my shift and tried not to check my phone every 15 minutes. At 5 p.m., I came home, put Bean's leash on, and took him for a long loop around the block to walk off the anxiety. When I got back, the basement door was open. Boxes were half filled, a suitcase yawning on the futon. Progress. At 8:30, the space heaters were gone. At 9:15, the dryer ran with a final load. At 9:40, Brianna posted a selfie from my couch, my throw pillow tucked under her elbow. The caption read, "Family is everything," with a heart and a handful of tags to cousins and an aunt who loves to comment. I stared at the photo, the edge of my coffee table, Bean's tail blurred in the corner, and swallowed the urge to walk in and yank the pillow away. I put my phone down face first, wrote change code 8 a.m. on a sticky note and stuck it to the front of my brain, and went to bed. I woke up before my alarm, lit by the kind of alertness that doesn't need coffee. Bean thumped his tail once and went back to snoring. I opened the smart lock app and scheduled the basement code change for 8 a.m. on the dot. The old code sat there for a last minute like a memory, then I typed in the new one and hit save. Done. At 7:52, a white van eased to the curb. Two guys in polo shirts and boot covers carried hoses like big blue snakes toward my porch. I met them with the door open and a smile I practiced in the mirror. Basement carpets, I said. Through here, down the stairs, I cleared the path. One of them nodded, checked a clipboard. We'll need a sink for water and a place to dump. Laundry sink's in the basement, I said. I'll come down and show you. Watch the third step. It creaks. I put Bean in my bedroom with a chew and the fan on to hum over the noise. By 8:03, the new code was live, the hoses were snaking down my stairs, and the pre-treatment sprayer was whispering over the rug. I stood with my arms crossed and my jaw unclenched. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt like I'd finally caught up to myself. At 9:40, the van inched forward to make room for another car in front of my house, and I could hear the machine's steady roar through the floor. I'd moved the futon, the storage bins, everything not nailed down to the corners so they could run straight lines. The basement looked bare. Cleaners did their slow ballet with wands and hoses while I stayed out of the way and signed the work order on the porch swing. At 10:12, my phone buzzed. A text from Charlie. Here, need to grab a few things. I typed back, cleaners are working, basement is off limits. Your boxes are in the garage, labeled. I'll open it. 3 dots. Then, we still had today. You had until April 30, I replied. It's May 1st. I told you the code would change at 8. Silence. 30 seconds later, the side gate rattled. I walked to the garage, hit the button, and the door climbed with its usual groan. Boxes stacked neatly, labels facing out, jackets, bathroom, B, electronics, kitchen, B and C. I'd pushed them into a clean line, left plenty of space to pull a car up. Charlie stood there with a coffee and a tight expression, Brianna behind him in sunglasses like the sun was a personal affront. They'd both read the message. I saw it in the way they didn't look at the door to the basement, just at me. You changed the code, Charlie said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried an accusation anyway. I did, I said. Like I said I would. That's cold, he said. We're not strangers. It's the date we agreed on, I said. I booked cleaners for 8 a.m. today. Your stuff is packed and safe. I'll help load the car. Brianna pulled her sunglasses down a notch. You locked us out, she said, thumbs moving already on her phone. We were literally here last night helping you clean. You posted a selfie from my couch, I said, at 9:40. That's not helping me clean. She muttered something I didn't catch and lifted her phone higher. Her screen reflected a new thread title as she typed, Family Chat. I watched the little circle spin as she hit send. Don't do this, Charlie said under his breath. Not to me. I'm not doing anything, she said. I'm telling the truth. To me, he said, you didn't have to be like this. I'm being consistent, I said. It's not personal. Feels personal. I kept my voice steady. You can load up. If you need a dolly, it's against the wall. I'd like the garage clear by noon. My phone started vibrating, then again. She locked us out. Taya, seriously? How could you? Names pinged up the screen like a roll call of people who hadn't been yanked awake by the dryer. Lara chimed in fast. Wait, what? You really did that? Another cousin. It's just family. An aunt with a heart emoji. We help each other. I put the phone in my pocket. The carpet machine down below changed pitch as it hit the last strip of rug. Air smelled like cleaner and damp fibers. I grabbed the jacket's box and handed it to Charlie. He took it with a little more force than necessary. This is messed up, Brianna said, eyes still on her phone. People are shocked. I told you all month, I said. April 30th, quiet hours, utilities on the 15th. This isn't a surprise. She laughed once, sharp. Who cares about quiet hours? We're not teenagers. She plucked bathroom or B off the stack like it weighed nothing. You know what? It's fine. We're not dying to be here. Then let's finish, I said. We moved boxes, heavier ones to the trunk, light ones to the back seat. Charlie's jaw worked like he was chewing a thought he didn't like. Twice he almost said something and didn't. When we reached the end of the stack, I swept the empty space again with my eyes, making sure nothing had wandered. The garage looked like itself. The cleaners wrapped up at 11:05. One of them came up and said, We'll leave the fans a few hours to help it dry. Try to keep off it until late afternoon. Will do, I said. Thanks. Brianna angled her phone towards me. A photo of my basement stairs, the cleaning hoses visible, a caption I didn't need to read to know the tone. The family chat kept chiming from my pocket, a steady metronome of opinions. Charlie closed the trunk, finally looked me dead in the eye. "You're heartless sometimes," he said. It landed like a flick, quick and mean. I took a breath I didn't feel like I had time for. "I'm not," I said. "I'm tired," and I meant what I said. He shook his head, got in the car, started the engine. Brianna typed one last thing, hit send with a theatrical tap, and slid into the passenger seat. They backed out, tires crunching the little grit that always collects near the curb. I stood in the garage with the door open and watched the street go still again. My phone buzzed so hard it vibrated against my leg. I closed the garage, leaned against the workbench, and opened the family thread. A wall of messages. "Why would you do that?" "They just needed time." "Unbelievable." Lara. "Receipts, or it didn't happen." I scrolled past the outrage and tapped into the folder I'd been building for weeks. The screenshot of 2 months, the list on the fridge, the bolded 30-day notice with scene, the blue water graph, the electric bill spike, the time-stamped clip of the dryer at 2:13 a.m. I thumbed over the edges of each image like they were index cards and let my breathing even out. Then I took a deep breath and held it like a promise. I opened the family thread and watched the new messages stack. Taya. "This is too much." "Who locks out family?" Lara again. "Receipts, or it didn't happen." "Fine." I typed, kept it short. "For clarity, here's the timeline and what we agreed to. This isn't about shaming anyone, it's about why I set a firm date." Then I attached everything. A screenshot of Charlie's March 1st text. "Could we use your basement for 2 months?" "We can do $200 on the 15th. My yes right under it. A photo of the one-page list taped to my fridge, quiet hours, clean up, $200 due by the 15th, move-out date highlighted, April 30th. The April 1st text I sent with 30-day notice bolded. The two red stamps visible, the water bill, usage higher than usual email with the blue bars. March versus April circled. The electric bill showing the KW jump. I circled it in red. 3 grocery receipts with dates. Totals circled because I live alone and I notice when I suddenly don't. A photo of the backyard the morning after the tiny party, cups nested by the fence, frosting on the patio chair. A 9-second clip, my stove clock glowing 2:13 a.m., the dryer humming through it. I ended with, "I changed the basement code at 8 a.m. today, May 1st, as communicated. Their boxes are packed, labeled, and in my garage for pickup. Carpet cleaners are here now. I love my family, and I also need my home to be livable. Please stop assuming the worst." I hit send and set the phone on the counter. Downstairs, the fans the carpet guys left blew a steady, warm wind across the empty rug. Bean lifted his head, then flopped back down with a sigh. The thread went quiet in chunks. The last wow hung there without a response. One cousin reacted to my message with a small heart. Another wrote, "Didn't see all this," and deleted it before it landed. Lara dropped a single. "Oh." My phone rang with Mom's name. I stepped onto the porch to take it. The street felt like it had exhaled. "I didn't know it was all this," she said, voice soft, the way she gets when she's repotting something fragile. "You told me, but I didn't see. I'm sorry I asked you to wait." "I know you were trying to keep the peace," I said. "I'm fine. I just need sleep and my kitchen back." "They should have paid you," she said. "They should have listened. I wasn't asking for much." I sat on the top step, the porch wood warm under my legs. I told them the date, and I stuck to it. "You did the right thing," she said. "Are they? Where are they?" As if on cue, a text from Charlie pinged through under her call banner. "At a motel for a couple nights. Sent $250 toward bills. That's literally all I can swing until work starts. Hope that makes you feel better." I read it, let it sit for a second, then told Mom, "They're at a motel." He sent me some money. That's something, she said. He's embarrassed. Don't let his words stick to you. After we hung up, I opened Charlie's text. The money was there, a transfer notification a few seconds behind it. I typed back, "Got it. Thank you. I love you both. I'm not doing open-ended stays again. If there's ever a next time, dates in writing and contribution up front. Otherwise, it's a no." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, came back. "We weren't trying to be awful," he wrote. "It got away from us." "I know," I replied. "I'm not angry. I'm done being unclear." No last word from Brianna, just a seen receipt on the motel text and silence in the family thread, the kind that means people are rereading. I forwarded my message to Ivy with a single line. Did the thing. She shot back a confetti emoji and, "Proud of you. Go make coffee at a normal volume." I did. The fans downstairs would have drowned out a marching band, but it still felt symbolic to turn on the grinder without checking the time. I poured a mug and carried it to the porch. Mom called again that evening, gray sky sliding down toward dinner time. "If they get a place next month," she said, careful, "will you come see it? I'm trying to reset things." "If we all keep our boundaries," I said. "Yes." She breathed out like she'd been waiting to hear it. "Deal." After we hung up, the family thread flickered once more, and Aunt wrote, "Thanks for the context." Scott's porch light blinked on next door, then off. I finished my coffee, closed the app where the screenshot sat in a neat row, and let the house hum the way it's supposed to when it's yours. By late afternoon, the fans downstairs clicked off and the house settled into the kind of quiet that isn't empty, just calm. I propped the basement door open to let the last of the damp air out, folded the futon back into a couch, and wiped the baseboards where the hoses had scuffed. The mini fridge hummed to itself. I pulled it open, tossed an abandoned yogurt and a half-used jar of salsa, and made a note to buy baking soda to sit in the back and absorb the rest of the party smell that still lived in my head. I made coffee at 5 without checking the time. Bean trotted across the kitchen like he'd been waiting for the signal that normal was back. I poured a mug, took a sip, and didn't tiptoe. On the entry table, I set out a plain black folder. Inside, a one-page guest policy I typed that morning. Dates in writing, contribution upfront, quiet hours 10 p.m., 6 a.m., no parties without approval, clean up immediately, no incense. At the bottom, no open-ended stays. I slid a pen into the spine and tucked a small envelope behind it labeled Keys Code, clear enough that nobody could pretend they didn't understand me. I updated the smart lock, set a standard code just for me, and saved a blank slot labeled Guest Expires. The little check mark next to Auto Expire made something in my shoulders relax. In the garage, the corner I'd cleared for their boxes was empty again, the old rug rolled up and leaned against the wall. I swept once more out of habit and put my bike back. The family thread stayed quiet. A couple cousins reacted to my last message with thumbs up. Lara dropped a "got it." I left it alone. When Mom texted, "How are you?" I sent back a picture of Bean asleep, belly up, and wrote, "Quieter." She replied with a heart. I took the trash out to the curb and nearly ran into Scott at our shared fence line. He lifted his chin. "Hey, Taya." "Hey," I said. "About the other night. Thanks for texting me." "And sorry again." He waved it off. "Kids slept through worse. Street feels quiet again." "That's the plan," I said. We stood there a minute, neighbor casual, looking at rhododendrons along his side yard that had just finished blooming. "Yours look good this year," he said. "Yeah," I said. They took their time, but they showed up. The next morning, I sent Charlie a short text. "Let me know where to forward any mail. Hope the job comes through." I meant what I said. If there's a next time, dates and contribution upfront. He sent back, "Work starts Monday. We're figuring lodging." No emojis. I left it there. Ivy called on my lunch break. "Did you sleep?" "Like a person," I said. "Proud of you," she said. "Now take that policy and laminate it like the office nerd you are." I laughed. Don't tempt me. A week later, my phone buzzed with a photo from Charlie, a small rental, beige carpet, vertical blinds, one slat shorter than the rest, a sun patch on the floor. Not fancy, he wrote, but it's ours for now. I looked at the light on the carpet like a promise nobody had to make to me. Proud of you, I texted back. Congrats. Boundaries in place, and I'll bring a plant when you're ready for visitors. Deal, he said. A beat later, thanks for holding the line. Mom came by that evening with 2 grocery store cookies in a paper bag and settled next to me on the porch steps. We watched the street be boring, a jogger, a mail truck, the slow turn of someone learning to parallel park. I talked to them, she said. They're rattled, but they know. I know too. I know you were trying to keep things smooth, I said. She nodded, a little sad, a little relieved. Smooth isn't always kind. No, I said. Sometimes it's just quiet. We ate the cookies with our hands, sugar dusting our fingers. Bean-nosed around our knees for crumbs and then decided the sun-warmed wood was better than biscuits. What's your plan for the folder? Mom asked, glancing back at the entry table. Anyone who wants to stay knows the rules, I said. Dates, contribution, no exceptions. I don't want to be a landlord, but I won't be vague. She smiled. You sound like me, talking to my plants. They listen, I said. Eventually. She bumped her shoulder into mine. We didn't talk about the cousins' chat. We didn't talk about the $250 beyond me, saying it helped with the cleaners and part of the bills. We didn't debate anything. We just shared the kind of quiet that felt like respect. When she left, I did a last loop through the house. Dishwasher running, laundry folded, the dry erase board wiped down to clean white. I erased the April 30 highlight with one firm swipe and wrote groceries in the corner like a normal person about to live a normal week. Before bed, I flipped through the screenshots in my basement folder one more time and then moved the whole thing into an archive. Not to forget, just to file. The next morning, Scott waved from his driveway. The clinic called to ask if I could cover a Friday shift. Ivy sent a link to a patio table on sale. Charlie texted their new address for mail. I wrote it on an envelope and tucked it into the black folder so I wouldn't lose it. I made coffee without thinking about anyone's sleep but mine, opened the window to let in the ordinary sounds of my street, and exhaled the kind of breath that doesn't ask permission. My house is a boundary I can see and touch, and I intend to keep it that way.
The towels were folded into crisp hotel triangles when I walked in. My pantry had new white labels in a tidy font. An electric bill with my name on it sat on the counter, slit open like it had inspected itself. Next to it, a sticky note in looping cursive. You're welcome. A little smiley face. I'm Ellie Davis. I'm 32 and I work the morning shift at the Maplewood Public Library's circulation desk, 7:45 to 2:00 most days, which lets me get home before the school traffic hits our street. I live in a small 1950s ranch we bought last spring in Maplewood, Ohio, with my husband, Owen Davis, who's 34 and works as an accountant in town. We gave his mum, Maria, who is 61 and very tidy, a spare key for emergencies the day we closed. His dad, Albert, is 63 and will do anything to keep the peace. Owen's sister, Rachel, is 29 and can make something sound like a joke even when it isn't. My co-worker and friend, Carmen, is 35 and allergic to drama, but somehow always knows when it's brewing. I set my bag down and just stood there for a second, listening to the quiet. The air smelled faintly like lemon cleaner. In the bathroom, the towels weren't just folded. The edges were aligned like a display. In the pantry, new labels layered over mine. Pasta, flour, snacks. The tape was perfectly straight. My own slanted sticky notes, baking stuff and chips, were bunched in the trash. The electric bill had 2 diagonal cuts like someone used a letter opener too long for the envelope. That someone had also pulled my cookbook off the shelf. There was a stray breadcrumb on the counter that wasn't from us. I rubbed the heel of my hand against my chest. It didn't help. I peeled the "You're welcome" note off the counter and slid it into the back of the utensil drawer under the tongs. Then I took the top towel from the perfect stack, shook it out, and refolded it the way my hands do without thinking. Not rebellion, just mine. When Owen got home around 6, he set his keys in the dish and kissed my head. "You beat me," he said, looking at the lemony gleam. "Place looks good." It wasn't me. He followed my eyes to the pantry and the mail. "Oh," he said slower. "Did Mom come by?" "Not to see us?" He glanced at the opened bill. "Okay. That's not great." He scratched the back of his neck, which is what he does when he's choosing words. She probably thought she was helping. "She let herself in, Owen, and she opened our mail." He nodded, mouth tight. "I'll talk to her." Gently. "She worries about you being alone during the day, and the gas line thing last month freaked her out." The gas line thing was a contractor 2 houses over hitting something, and the utility trucks camped on our street for an hour. Maria had texted me 12 times in 30 minutes. I hadn't thought the solution would be lemon cleaner. "I get that she worries," I said, "but we gave her that key for emergencies. My pantry isn't one." He exhaled. "I know. I'll call her tonight." He picked up the pantry label he'd accidentally brushed to the floor and put it back on the counter, like he was resetting a card in solitaire. "It's a misunderstanding. She just likes systems." "I have a system." He touched my elbow. "I know. I'll make it clear." We ate leftovers and watched half of a show with the volume low. I couldn't stop glancing toward the door like I was expecting another bright ding that we don't have. I washed our 2 plates, refolded one more towel, and tried not to picture my mother-in-law, cheerful and efficient, moving through my rooms like a well-meaning ghost. Before bed, Owen said, "I'll talk to her in the morning, promise." He meant it. He always means it. The next day was Wednesday. I shelved new paperbacks before noon, scanned 4 library cards that were actually gym memberships, and handed a toddler a sticker sheet because his bottom lip was about to give. I told myself that the note was a one-off, and maybe she'd apologize, and maybe I could stop feeling like my house had been borrowed without asking. I clocked out at 2:03, drove the 8 minutes home, and keyed in the code. The lemon smell was fainter. The towels were untouched. The pantry was still labeled like a catalog. On the counter, under the magnet shaped like a tomato, a new sticky note waited. "Shoes should live on the mat, not by the stairs." Same looping handwriting. Same little smiley at the end, as if we were all in on something. I looked at my sneakers, set side by side where I always kick them off after work, and then at the note. I slipped it into the utensil drawer with the first one, and closed it slowly, like I was filing something. I took a picture of the sticky note on the counter, then texted the photo to Maria with, "Please don't come by when we're not home." Her reply came fast. A red heart then, just popped in, wanted to straighten. "Love you." I stared at the heart until it timed out and turned into the word seen. I tucked the note under the tongs with the first one and lined my shoes neatly on the mat, because I didn't have the energy to make a point nobody was hearing. When Owen got home, I showed him the text thread. "I called her this morning," he said, setting his laptop bag down like it might break the counter. "She didn't pick up. I left a message. I'll swing by their place tomorrow after work." "Okay." I rinsed a mug that wasn't dirty just to move my hands. She answered me. He winced at the heart emoji. She thinks she's helping. "Then she'll understand 'please don't come in' means don't come in?" He nodded. "I'll make it clear." Thursday was ordinary in the way that makes you think you imagined the not ordinary. I checked in holds, shelved biographies, ate a yogurt at the staff table, and pointed a confused teenager toward the study rooms. When I got home at 2, the towels were the same, the pantry still labeled like a classroom. No new notes. Owen texted a thumbs up at 4, talked to Mom, told her to wait for an invite, and I let myself believe that maybe that was that. Sunday dinner at his parents' is the kind of thing you don't put on a calendar. It just happens if you don't stop it from happening. We brought a bag of dinner rolls because Maria says my potatoes are rustic, which I have learned is not a compliment. Albert opened the door with his usual, "There's my kids," and stepped back so we could squeeze past his toolbox that lives by the umbrella stand. The house smelled like ham and that particular clean that lives in their kitchen grout. Rachel was at the island, spearing olives and talking about a neighbor's new deck. Maria slid a casserole into the oven without looking at me. "Hi, Mom," Owen said, kissing her cheek. She pressed a hand to his face like he was still 10. "Hi, sweetheart." We ate at the dining table with the runner that only comes out on holidays, except Maria believes Sundays are small holidays. She asked about the library. I asked about her church quilting group. It was polite and warm until Rachel, in her easy cheer, said, "Mom was saying Ellie's so creative but not domestic," and laughed like we were all on the same team. My fork stopped. It was just for a second, but it made a sound against the plate that everyone heard. Owen's hand found my knee under the table and squeezed a sorry into it. Out loud, he said nothing. Maria fluttered her napkin. "Oh, it's not a criticism, dear. Not everyone sees the little things. That's why I have an eye for it." She smiled like a hostess. Albert poured more tea, as if the right amount of Lipton could keep a ship upright. "Who wants pie?" he asked too early. "I'll get it," Rachel said, already halfway up. She didn't look mean about it, just oblivious, which is one of the ways gossip travels the fastest. We left with an empty roll bag and leftovers we hadn't asked for. In the car, Owen cleared his throat. "I should have said something." "You didn't have to let her say it," I said. It came out flat. I was too tired to sand the edges. He drove the 8 minutes home careful with the brakes, like gentleness could be retroactive. I keyed in the code, our code, and the entryway light clicked on. The front hall rug was rotated a quarter turn, pattern running the wrong way, the tag at the corner trying to hide, but not quite making it. On the bench sat a brown box with my name printed on the label. A thin slash cut through the packing tape. The flap was tucked back down like a secret put away badly. I pulled the tape up. Inside was a sweater I ordered on sale, still wrapped in thin plastic. The plastic slit opened just enough for a finger to slip in. Not ruined, just opened. Owen was behind me, quiet. "She was here," I said. Saying it out loud gave the room edges. His jaw shifted. "When?" "Today, while we were out." "Or earlier." I took my phone out and snapped a photo of the rug with the tag showing, then the box with the open tape and my name, then the lock on the door because I wanted the whole picture in the frame. The time stamped itself in white in the corner, precise and impersonal. I opened the Photos app and created an album. House. Owen rubbed his forehead. "I told her," he said, low. "I told her." I nodded. I didn't say, "Tell her again." I didn't say anything. I just bent down and turned the rug back, one edge at a time, until the pattern ran the way I like to see it when I come home. We put the leftovers in the fridge. I set the sweater on the chair to wash later. I checked the utensil drawer. The 2 sticky notes were still there, neat little receipts of intent. My phone buzzed on the counter with a missed call. Maria's name glowed. A new voicemail icon popped up. I tapped it and put it on speaker. Her voice came through chirpy and bright, like a jingle you can't get out of your head. "Hi, honey. Stopped by to help. Everything's fine. Love you." The message ended with a beep that sounded louder than it should in our kitchen. I drove to Maria's after my shift the next day and parked at the curb, engine ticking as it cooled. Her porch had the same white railing Owen once peeled his knee on when he was 5, a seasonal wreath, and a choir mat that said, "Welcome" in cursive that didn't look like an invitation to me. She opened the door before I could knock twice. "Ellie, come in, dear." "I'll stay out here," I said, light as I could make it. The chain on the porch swing creaked when a breeze moved it. She paused, then stepped onto the mat, wiping already clean hands on her apron. "Everything okay?" "I need to be clear," I said. "Please don't come into our house when we're not home. Don't open our mail. Don't rearrange things. If you think there's a safety issue, call us." Her smile didn't drop. It just held. "Oh, honey, I only poke my head in. 2 minutes. I make sure the stove's off, straighten, check that you don't have packages sitting out. Little things. You'll thank me later." "I won't," I said, and heard myself not soften it. "I know you mean well." "But it's our home. No entry without us there." She reached for my hand and patted it twice. "You're busy. You work hard. Let me help. I can't help the tidying. It's in my bones." She laughed in a way that was supposed to be charming. "Please don't come in anymore," I repeated. "I'm asking plainly." Her eyes flicked to the street and back. "Owen worries. The gas lines scare. If there's an emergency, call. Otherwise, wait for an invitation." For a long second, we looked at each other like two people on either side of a window. She broke it first, voice going bright. "Let me send you home with banana bread. I just pulled a loaf." "I'm fine, thanks." I stepped back a half step. "I'll see you Sunday." She stood there with the porch swing creaking lightly and said, "You'll see," like she'd won something. I drove home gripping the wheel too hard and put my phone on the counter without looking at it until dinner. A week went by without notes. I let myself unclench a little. I shelved returns. I refilled the receipt paper that jams every Friday. I watched an elderly man fall asleep in the red armchair by the newspapers and made sure he woke up before closing. On Tuesday, Carmen stepped up beside me at the desk while I scanned a stack of mysteries. "You good?" she asked, just low enough for only me. "Define good," I said, smiling so the patron wouldn't think anything was wrong. She waited until I handed over the books and the patron moved away. "I heard something weird. My neighbor Anne goes to St. Mark's, and she said some lady from her quilting circle was talking about fixing up Owen's place because it's a project. That your Maria?" Heat climbed my neck. Maplewood is small and wide-mouthed. "Sounds like her." Carmen made a face. "You want me to pretend I didn't say anything?" "No, I'm glad you did." I checked the clock, 1:57, and felt suddenly very ready to go home. The hydrangea by our front steps was cut down to sticks, not pruned, leveled. Yesterday it was a green mound with fat buds. Today it looked like something after a frost. There was a neat bundle of stems in the yard waste bin, like a florist's discard. My stomach did a slow roll. I snapped a photo from the sidewalk, another up close where you could see the clean white cuts. The chain on our gate knocked twice in the wind. I unlocked the door and went straight to the kitchen. On the counter, under the tomato magnet that should live on the fridge, was an envelope with the gas company's logo, my name printed clear. The flap was half open, the top torn just enough to see the bill peeking out. I took a photo of that too. And then I slid the envelope into a drawer with the sticky notes, like I was tucking a child into bed. I called Maria. She picked up on the second ring. "Hi, honey. Did you cut our hydrangea?" "They needed it," she said, almost offended. "They don't bloom if you let them go wild." "They were about to bloom," I said. "Please don't touch our yard." A beat. Then the smile came back into her voice. "Well, it'll come back better, and you had mail on the counter." "You shouldn't leave things out, dear. It's how things get lost." "You opened our bill." "It must have been the wind," she said, light as air, like envelopes unzip themselves if you look at them hard enough. "I set a magnet so it wouldn't blow away." I closed my eyes. Do not open our mail. Do not come in without us. Don't be cross. I'm helping. She hung there, chirpy, and I realized she wasn't going to say more. Okay, I said. I'm hanging up now. When Owen got home, I didn't make him guess. I showed him the photos, the shaved hydrangea, the envelope under the tomato, the call log with the time. He leaned on the counter with both hands like it was the only thing holding him up. She's not hearing me, he said. I'll go over there this weekend. I'll get the spare key. This weekend, I repeated. I promise. He put his hand over mine. Saturday morning. I'll be back by 10. Saturday came with coffee and a softball game on TV, and his dad asking if he could help move a ladder. He said he'd go after lunch, then after he finished a spreadsheet, then, it's dinner time already? The sun went down behind our neighbor's maple. The porch light blinked on by itself at 9. Sunday morning, I moved the tomato magnet back to the fridge and lined it up with the others. Owen looked at his shoes, then at me. I'll go today, he said. Okay, I said, and opened the utensil drawer just to make sure the notes were still there. The bleach announced itself before I saw it. Sharp, chemical, wrong for a Tuesday afternoon. I pulled my navy cardigan from the laundry basket, and there it was across the left hip, a clean white comet where the yarn used to be blue. I hadn't done a load. The washer lid was propped open with the measuring cup in it like a still life. I turned the sweater to the light. The streak was too neat to be an accident. My stomach dropped the way it does when you think you left the stove on and you're already halfway to work. I took a photo, front, close up, the little splash dots around the main smear, and added them to the house album. Then I sniffed the measuring cup and didn't need the label to tell me, bleach. Owen got home at 6 and found me at the table with the cardigan laid out like evidence. What happened? He asked. Someone pre-treated it, I said, and watched him understand. He pinched the bridge of his nose. She shouldn't have touched your laundry. She shouldn't have been in here. He sat, elbows on his knees. I talked to her Saturday, he said, quiet. She said she hears things, sirens, noises. She worries. She framed the key as safety. What if there's a leak? What if we're stuck out of town? She thinks access is protection. Access is how bleach got on my sweater. He nodded. You're right. We ate quickly, both of us polite to the forks. After, I reached for the cookbook with the chocolate cake recipe that never fails. An envelope slid out from the pages and hit the floor with a slap. The gas company's logo stared up at me. I picked it up, opened, due date last week. I checked my email, then the online account. A red past due banner blinked with a $4.12 late fee tacked on. I held it out. Explain this. Owen read the date, cursed under his breath, and passed it back like it burned. I didn't see that one. Because it was inside the cookbook. He closed his eyes. She said she sorted the mail so it made sense. It doesn't. I paid the balance online while the page spun. Then I slid the envelope into the drawer with the sticky notes and the photo printouts I'd started making, paper edges lining up in a way that soothed nothing but my need to control what I could. We washed 2 plates. The silence hovered and then landed. I need you to be clear with her, I said, not raising my voice. It didn't need it. Not a gentle hint. Clear. He looked me in the eye. I will. Tonight. I'm going to be clear too, I said. He waited. I'm buying a door chime. He blinked, then nodded once. Good. I sat on the couch with my phone and searched the hardware store apps. There it was. Simple, white, battery-powered, a magnetic sensor for the door, and a chime you plug into any outlet. Entry alert, the description said. $29. I ordered it for pickup. Owen offered to go. I said I needed the drive. The parking lot lights were already buzzing when I pulled in. The kid at customer service slid the small box across the counter like a deck of cards. At home, I set the chime on the counter, sliced the tape carefully, ironic, and read the one-page instructions twice. The sensor stuck to the door frame with foam tape. The magnet lined up on the door so the tiny arrows kissed when the door was closed. I plugged the chime in by the hall and tested it. The sound was bright and ordinary, like a convenience store bell. It filled the house in a single note. "Nice," Owen said from the kitchen. "Not too loud." "It'll do," I said. My hands were steady. My heart was not. He called his mom after, on speaker because I asked. "Hi, sweetheart," Maria chirped. "We were just watching the news." "Mom," he said, voice careful, "listen, no more stopping by without being invited. No coming in when we're not home. No sorting, no moving, no mail. If you think something's wrong, call me." A pause, then that bright tone again. "Oh, don't be dramatic. I'm only making sure things are safe." "Mom," he repeated, a little firmer. "Boundary. Please respect it." "Well," she said, wounded and airy at once. "If that's how you want to speak to me." "It's how it is," he said. "Good night." He hung up and stared at the dark phone screen like it might offer a prize for bravery. I touched his arm. We went to bed with the house so quiet I could hear the clock in the hall tick, and beneath it the new chime's tiny electronics humming. In the morning, before my shift, I checked the sensor alignment again and pressed the foam tape harder with my thumb. I left at 7:30, locked the door, and pictured the chime sitting there, patient. The next day, I clocked out early. I told Carmen I had an appointment, which wasn't exactly a lie. I drove home and let the quiet wrap around me when I stepped inside. I didn't turn on music. I sat on the hallway floor with my back against the wall, legs stretched toward the door, phone in my hand with the camera open and the house album ready. The chime was 2 feet from my head, a white plastic rectangle waiting to tell the truth. My legs went numb 5 minutes in. I stayed. I watched the doorknob and listened to the refrigerator cycle and the faint sound of a lawnmower somewhere down the block, and I waited for a sound. The chime sang, a bright, guilty ding, and the knob turned. "Shoes by the stairs again," Maria's voice floated in before she did, conversational, like we were mid-sentence. She stepped over the threshold with a practiced tilt of her head, a small stack of mail in her hand. On top was an envelope with my name printed in black ink. For half a second, the house hung between two versions of itself, the one where she always walked in and the one where I was already sitting on the hall floor, phone in my lap, watching her do it. She saw me. She stopped. The chime's echo faded into the hallway in a thin ring. I didn't say anything. I stood up, smoothed my shirt, and held out my hand for the letter. Color climbed up her neck into her cheeks like it had a job to do. "I was just helping," she said, too bright. The mail didn't move. I kept my hand there, steady. "This is my home." Her mouth opened, then closed. She put the envelope in my palm like it weighed more than paper. I took it, glanced down at my name, then tucked it against my side. "You shouldn't leave things right by the door," she added, scrambling for her footing. "Anyone can see." "The door was locked," I said. "You unlocked it." She laughed, a little breathless. "Oh, Ellie." I took one step closer, not crowding, just filling my own doorway. "No entry without us here. We've said it. I'm saying it again." Her eyes flicked to the tiny white chime plugged into the wall, then back to me. "That noise is ridiculous. You don't need that in your own home." "It's working," I said. She shifted her purse up on her shoulder and looked past me into the living room, like she could summon something to touch, straighten, fix. There was nothing to hold. She set the rest of the mail on the console table, palms flat for a second like she was steadying herself, then pulled her hands back as if the wood was warm. "Tell Owen I stopped by," she said, the cheer thinning. "I will." I didn't move. Please go. She stepped backward onto the mat, hesitated half a beat like she might try a different angle, then lifted her chin, turned, and left. The chime dinged again when the door closed behind her, a clean punctuation mark. I locked the deadbolt and took a photo of the envelope in my hand with the door and the chime in the frame, the date and time stamped neat in the corner. Then I set the mail on the console, opened the Photos app, and added it to the house album. My legs remembered they were numb and stung awake. I texted Owen. It happened. She used the key. I was here. I have proof. He replied almost immediately. You okay? Yes. Come home when you can. On my way. I sat on the bottom stair with the envelope and listened to the refrigerator hum. 10 minutes later, I heard his car, then his key. The chime dinged and I didn't flinch. He came in fast, took one look at my face, then at the mail, then at the door. You saw her. I didn't have to go far. I told him exactly what she'd said and what I'd said back, no adjectives. He sighed, long and heavy, then nodded. Thank you for waiting. He touched the chime with his knuckle like you might pat a dog. Worth every penny. We ate leftovers cold, standing at the counter, because sitting felt like pretending things were normal. Afterward, I pulled the printer out from the shelf where it lives and shook out the extra paper. Owen watched me feed a fresh stack into the tray. What are you doing? He asked, making this official. He didn't joke. Okay. I opened a blank document and typed a title in bold, bigger than it needed to be, Home Access Agreement. The words landed steady on the screen. Below it, I wrote what I wanted to stop negotiating. 1. No entry without an invitation. 2. No access to mail, packages, laundry, or personal items. 3. No moving or sorting belongings. 4. If you believe there's an emergency, call or text first. 5. Spare keys are the property of the homeowners and must be returned upon request. I read it twice, edited nothing, and clicked print. The pages slid out warm and smelling like new paper. I slipped them into a thin 3-ring binder we bought for taxes and never used, then dug out a clear sleeve from the office drawer and slid it into the front like a cover. On a small label, I wrote, Davis Home, and stuck it on the spine. Owen leaned his hip against the table and watched me click the rings shut. You want me to sign with you? Yes, I said. We both sign. We bring it Sunday. We say it out loud. He nodded, jaw set. We'll do it. I tucked the binder onto the counter next to the utensil drawer where the sticky notes lived, the white spine plain and certain. I put a pen on top. I took one more photo, title page, pen, my kitchen behind it, and added it to the album. The house was quiet again in the way I like, the clock in the hall, the low hum of the chime's plug, nothing else. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel, memes and a question about a birthday gift for a cousin, and I let it sit. I rinsed my plate. Owen locked the door. The chime didn't ring again. We called a locksmith first thing Sunday morning. Maplewood Lock and Key answered on the second ring and said they could come by between 9 and 10. I made coffee and put the binder on the table where I had to look at it instead of talking myself out of it. The truck pulled up at 9:12. The guy's name was Dan, printed on a stitched patch over his shirt pocket. He wiped his feet twice and asked how many locks we wanted rekeyed. Front door deadbolt and knob, back door deadbolt, Owen said, all to the same key. Dan nodded like he hears that every day. He worked fast, gentle with the weathered brass so it didn't look like anything had changed. He showed us how the old keys didn't turn anymore and handed over 4 new ones on a ring he'd looped through a bright tag. I pressed one into Owen's palm and kept one in mine. That'll be $165.78, he said, tapping at his tablet. Receipt, email, or paper? Paper, I said, before I could give myself room to delete it later. He printed it in the truck and tore it clean. After he left, I slid the receipt into a clear sleeve and tucked it behind the title page in the binder. Seeing the numbers under plastic steadied me. It cost us to fix what a conversation couldn't. I didn't want to forget that and smooth it into an almost. Owen looked at the new keys in his hand. "She won't be able to get in," he said, not triumphant, just factual. "Good," I said. We sat at the kitchen table with the binder between us like a third-place setting. He picked up the pen I'd left on top and signed under my name, neat, steady letters. Owen Davis. I added the date. "Plan?" he asked. "Short," I said. "Read it out loud. Put the receipt on the table. Ask for the key back tonight. No arguing. If she argues, we repeat the first line." He nodded. "I'll back you." I pulled a small manila envelope from the drawer and wrote on the front, "Maria's spare. Please return tonight." The Sharpie bled a little into the paper. I put it with the binder. Up close, my hands looked calmer than they felt. We drove over at 4. The sky was the color it gets before it decides whether to rain or not. Albert opened the door with his usual, "There's my kids," then clocked the binder under my arm and didn't ask. He moved the toolbox by the umbrella stand an inch to the left, like that would make more space for us to walk through. In the kitchen, Maria was plating slices of ham with that precise little dip of the wrist she uses for everything. "And then she planted those marigolds right up against the fence," she was telling Rachel, amused. "The color is just, oh, hi." She smiled at us, quick, and went back to arranging. Rachel gave me an easy grin and a, "Hey you," and moved a bowl of peas to make room for my rolls. We sat at the dining table with the runner that only comes out on holidays, which was technically today. Albert poured iced tea. Owen took my hand under the table and left it there. I set the binder beside my plate, the envelope on top like a small square exclamation point. Dinner started like always. We passed dishes and made small talk. Maria asked about a patron who used to come to the library on Thursdays who'd moved away. I asked Albert how the ladder project went. Rachel told a story about her co-worker's dog that had everyone laughing, even me. It felt ordinary enough that for a minute, I thought about letting the binder sit until next week. Then I saw Maria's eyes snag on it, assess it, and slide off. Like clutter. Like something she could tidy away when I wasn't looking. I cleared my throat. My heart beat in my neck. I put my hand on the binder so it wouldn't lift with the air. "I'm going to read something aloud." The table went quiet, in the way that happens when everyone hears the tone, but not the words yet. A fork tapped a plate and then settled. Somewhere in the house, the hallway clock ticked twice, loud as a metronome. Maria laughed a small hostess laugh. "Ellie, can it wait until after we eat? Everything's getting cold." "It will take 1 minute," I said. I opened to the first page. The paper looked brighter under their dining room light, the words clean and impossible to misread. Albert folded his hands, eyes on the table. Rachel shifted, her smile gone but her face open. Owen's thumb pressed once into the back of my hand and stayed. I slid the locksmith receipt out of its sleeve and set it next to my plate where everyone could see the total. Then I held the page where my voice wouldn't shake it. The room held still around us. I felt the shape of the first line in my mouth and let it be simple. I read, "No entry without an invitation." The sentence hung in the air like steam. You could hear the hallway clock tick. A car passed outside, and then nothing again. Maria gave a small, baffled laugh. "Is this really necessary?" She looked at Albert, then at Owen, then back at me like she was trying to find the smile I must have misplaced. I set the locksmith receipt on the table between the peas and the mustard. The total faced her. "We changed the locks this morning." Her head jerked back. "You what?" "We rekeyed," Owen said steady. Front and back, all the same key, for clarity. Maria blinked fast. Clarity, she repeated. Like we're criminals? She tried to make it light. It fell short. I slid the small manila envelope across the runner. I'd written Maria's spare, please return tonight in thick Sharpie. The pen I'd brought sat on top of the binder, blue cap off. I kept my voice even. We're asking for the spare key back, and for you to sign. Albert cleared his throat softly, not looking up. Rachel shifted in her chair, her fork quiet on her plate. Owen moved the pen from the binder and placed it by Maria's wrist. I back this, he said. 4 words, no wobble. She stared at him. I watched the moment she realized no one at the table was going to interrupt, soften, or turn it into a joke. It was just us and paper and a number on a receipt that didn't blink. I was helping, she said, but it sounded smaller than it had in my kitchen. You know I was helping. You were crossing, Owen said, not unkindly. We've asked you to stop. We need you to stop. She inhaled like a long, careful count. You should have told me before you did something so dramatic. Her eyes slid to the receipt again. We did tell you, I said. We're saying it again. Here. I tapped the first line with my index finger. No entry without an invitation. Maria's mouth pressed into a line I knew from Owen's face when he concentrates. She looked to Albert as if to collect him. He finally lifted his eyes. It'll make things simple, he said soft. Simple is good. Rachel rubbed her palm on her napkin, a little fidget I recognized from when she's thinking too fast. If keys are the thing, maybe it's better this way, she added, not picking a side, just laying one down to be chosen. Maria let out a breath. This is humiliating. It's a boundary, I said, on paper so we don't have to argue about what we meant. She picked up the pen and held it like it might smudge her. What am I signing exactly? I turned the binder toward her so she could read the 5 lines. She skimmed, eyes catching on mail, on laundry, on the words call or text first. Her shoulders rose and fell. She signed, quick, small loops. The room loosened a fraction. I put the page back in the sleeves, clicked the ring shut, and slid the binder toward my bag. Key, Owen said, gentle. He nudged the envelope with 2 fingers, gave her that patient look he reserves for tax clients who bring in shoeboxes. Maria dug into her purse. Keys clinked against lip balm and a tiny measuring tape she always carries for store aisles. She pulled out a single brass key on a ring with a daisy fob and looked at it like it had done something wrong. When she dropped it into the envelope, the sound was surprisingly flat. She hesitated, then reached back into her bag and produced a second key, thinner, older, garage, and let that one fall too. Another soft clink. Thank you, I said. She licked her lips. I've had that key since the day you closed, she said, as if we'd asked her to part with a photograph. We know, Owen said. He folded the envelope flap and pressed it down. We'll give you our new code when we're traveling, or if we ask you to check on something. Otherwise, you call me. That's the plan. Maria's eyes shone for a second like the lights were too bright. She blinked it away and lifted her chin. Dessert? She said to the table, and her voice found its hostess register again. Rachel, cut the pie. We ate pie. It tasted like cinnamon and quiet. The conversation found safe topics and stayed there, skirting the paperweight on the table. Albert asked about the weather. Rachel talked about her co-worker's dog again, and we laughed in the places we were supposed to. Maria kept moving, clearing plates that didn't need clearing. When we stood to leave, she kissed Owen's cheek and patted my shoulder, light and careful, like I was a sleeping child you didn't want to wake. Drive safe, she said. It used to sound like love. Tonight, it sounded like practice. In the car, neither of us spoke until we were 2 blocks from their street. The sun had slid behind the maples and left the sidewalks blue. Owen reached over, palm up, and I put my hand in his without looking. My phone pinged in the cup holder. Rachel, I didn't know it was that bad. I'm sorry. I watched the 3 dots start and stop like she was trying out different words. I didn't type back yet. I let the chime in my head ding once, clean and certain, and we drove the 8 minutes home. The house sounded different after Sunday. The clock in the hall ticked. The refrigerator hummed. The chime stayed quiet until one of us came through the door. I didn't realize how much I'd been bracing until I caught myself walking in and out just to hear the ding, because I knew it would be us. Monday at the library, Carmen slid onto the stool next to the circulation computer while I checked in a stack of returns. "How'd your Sunday go?" she asked, voice low. "We brought a binder," I said, and that was enough. Her eyebrows went up. I told her about the locksmith, the agreement, the envelope. Not a speech, just the facts. What we said, what she signed, how the key sounded in the paper. Carmen let out a small, satisfied breath. "That's grown up," she said. "Anne from St. Mark's hasn't said a word about any project this week. Looks like your client closed her account." She was smiling, but her eyes were kind. "Good," I said. I slid a receipt across the counter to a woman who'd asked for one and didn't know she'd made my morning by needing anything normal. On Wednesday, a text buzzed at 11:20. "Maria, stop by. Left something for you." My lunch break started at noon. I drove home to find a glass casserole dish on the porch bench, beaded with condensation, foil crimped neatly. Under it, a note in the same looping handwriting, "Chicken divan, heat at 350. "You're welcome." I stood inside the door and watched her through the sidelight window. She was in the driveway in her blue cardigan, looking toward the house. When my phone pinged again, "You there?" I typed, "Thank you for the casserole. Next time, please text first. We'll grab it after you head out." I didn't open the door. She checked her phone, looked up at the house again, then got into her car. The casserole fogged the foil and sat on the bench like a small good thing she knew how to give. When her taillights turned the corner, I opened the door and the chime dinged like a permission slip. I picked up the dish. It was still warm. That night, Albert called before 8. "You home?" he asked. "We are," I said. "I've got that small stepladder Owen lent me. Mind if I swing by and drop it on the porch?" "Come by. We'll be here." He knocked and waited. When I opened the door, the chime punctuated it. He stood on the mat with his hands wrapped around the ladder, eyes flicking to the little white speaker in the hall. "That's a good idea," he said, and then, after a beat, "Your hydrangea will come back. They're tough." "I hope so," I said. He nodded. "Call me if you need anything." He meant it, the plain way he always has, no subtext. On Friday, Rachel texted again. "Mom started to say something snippy about your counters. I told her to talk to you, not me." Her sister-in-law emoji came after, arms up. I typed back, "Thank you, we're okay." She replied, "I know, proud of you guys." Sunday dinner didn't vanish, it just shrank. We came later, left earlier. Maria talked about church and gave Rachel a bag of herbs from her garden when she started to say, "If you just move that toaster you keep." Rachel's mom was gentle and redirecting. Maria shifted. Anyway, the neighbor's marigolds look better already. Her eyes met mine for a second, and for once, she didn't fill the space with a fix. The binder lived in our hall cabinet next to the board games. We didn't have to look at it to remember. The envelope with the keys stayed sealed, tucked behind the title page like a pressed leaf. Twice that week, Maria texted before she wanted to drop something. Once I said yes, once I said no. Both times she replied, "Okay." No smiley. When she did come by on Saturday with a bag of citrus from a sale at the co-op, she knocked and waited, standing on the mat with her hands around the handles, eyes on the chime like it might judge her. "May I come in?" she asked when I opened the door. "Yes," I said, and stepped aside. She handed me the bag and didn't reach for the counter I set it on. Owen joined us and made tea without anyone narrating where the spoons should go. She didn't stay long. She left with a hug for her son and a nod for me like we were trying out a new language and getting the simple verbs right. At the library the next week, Carmen walked past the desk with a stack of book club packets. "Quiet?" she asked. "Quiet," I said. She tipped the packets at me like a toast. Good. The chime learned our rhythm. Morning when Owen left, afternoon when I came home. Twice on evenings we forgot green onions and one of us ran out. It sounded exactly once at noon on a Thursday when Albert knocked to return a socket wrench, and then not at all until Owen's footsteps at 6. On a quiet evening, I sat at the table with a grocery list and a pen, the tomato magnet holding coupons in a neat little stack on the fridge. The air smelled like the chicken divan we'd reheated and finished, and the towels in the hall bathroom were folded like I fold them. A car door closed somewhere on the street. Then a knock, polite, 3 light taps that waited more than they asked. I smiled, set the pen down, and took my time walking to the door. When I opened it, the chime gave its clean ding, and whoever was on the mat, family or neighbor or a kid selling raffle tickets, waited with their hands to themselves. My counters stayed mine. The only note on the counter was a sticky I'd written for myself. Library book sale Friday, bring small bills. I left it there where I could see it, and it was enough.
The soup had a skin on it, and the spoon was stuck like a flagpole in grayish chicken fat. Grandma Charlotte held the bowl in both hands under her chin, half sitting up in bed, eyes on the door like I was the person she'd been waiting for all evening. My name is Natasha Young. I'm 30, and I'm the assistant manager on the late shift at Oak Street Market on the south side of town. I keep my grandma's house key on a blue lanyard because I'm the one who shows up when my younger brother says he's running late. He's Brian Young, 27, and he was supposed to be here tonight. "I thought you were Brian," Grandma said, voice brightening and then settling. "He texted he was running late." "He texted me too," I said, setting my tote on the chair by her dresser. "At 7:12. Then nothing." I took the bowl from her. The broth had congealed around noodle ends, cool against my fingers through the ceramic. The house was quiet in a way that makes you listen for things, leaking faucets, creaky vents, anything human. Nothing. Just the hum of the old fridge down the hall and the tick-tick of the living room clock. The quiet in this place has teeth when you're waiting on someone who isn't coming. Grandma is 79 and stubborn in the way that keeps people alive. Lives alone, refuses to move in with me, insists she can manage her little yellow house if we check on evenings and meds. We made a plan this winter. Alternating weekends, B for Brian, and N for me on the calendar stuck to her fridge with a tomato-shaped magnet. He picked Saturday nights. I took Sundays. Simple, realistic, adult. I took a picture of the bowl on her quilt with my phone before I headed to the kitchen. I didn't know why in that moment, just that I wanted proof of the quiet. The microwave light splashed yellow on the laminate as I stirred the soup, reheated it, and carried it back. Grandma's hair was mussed from a nap, gray and fine. The TV remote sat on her nightstand, untouched. She gave me that apologetic smile she uses when she thinks she's being a burden. "He's a good boy, just busy," she said. I bit my tongue. "Eat while it's hot, then we'll do your meds." She took a cautious sip. I opened her pill organizer on the dresser, Sunday through Saturday rows. The evening one for Saturday still full. We don't skip those. I set the blister pack next to her water and waited until she swallowed, counting in my head, watching her throat. The rituals make me feel better, like there's a right way to hold all this together. After she ate half the bowl, she swung her legs off the bed. Bathroom, she said. I've got you. She bristled. I'm fine. She wasn't wobbly until she stood. It was quick, a stumble, the heel of her slipper catching the rug edge, that sudden emptying of color from her face as her balance went. I caught her elbow and hip, felt her weight lean into me. My stomach did that drop it does on roller coasters, only we were in a dim hallway with family photos, and she was wearing those slippers with the worn soles I keep telling her to toss. Got you, I said again, softer. We shuffled to the bathroom. I waited outside the cracked door like always, listening for the small sounds that mean everything is fine. When she was done, I walked her back, lifted her legs onto the bed, and pulled the comforter over her knees. I don't like that one, she said, pointing at the spoon. It's too heavy. I'll bring the lighter one next time. Just tell him, she said, like we were still talking about spoons. I checked my phone. Still nothing from Brian. The last thing from him was hours ago, running late. No apology, no ETA. He knows Grandma eats by 7 and does meds at 8 because I wrote it out in text and on paper more than once. I went to the kitchen and stared at the fridge calendar. Big block letters, B-N-B-N, alternating like that truce we never signed in blood but tried to honor anyway. Tonight was a fat B in black Sharpie. I took another photo, this time of the square with the B and today's date. I added it to a folder I just made on my phone called Grandma. Out the kitchen window, the neighbor's porch light flicked on. Freya Wilkins lives next door. She's 52, has a teacher's patience, and agreed last month to sit with Grandma if we needed help. $60 a night if I asked her to stay. I hadn't called her tonight because Brian had claimed the shift. He always claims the shift until it's time to show up. I took the spoon and bowl back to the sink and ran hot water until the fat melted and swirled down in clouds. My phone buzzed, and my heart jumped like a dog trained to fetch. It wasn't Brian. It was a work group chat ping about covering a Sunday morning that I couldn't take. I set Grandma's evening pills where she couldn't miss them, boxed the rest of the soup, and texted Brian anyway. Are you okay? Grandma waited. She almost fell. He read it. 2 gray check marks turned blue, then nothing. When I went back to her room, she was drowsing. I smoothed the blanket, turned off the lamp, and sat in the chair by her bed for a while, listening to the clock, breathing with her. I slid my phone into my pocket with the photo of the bowl and the calendar, and I had the first clear thought I'd had all day. If he's busy, I'll be exact. Just this once, I told myself the next morning. Then the next Saturday came. At 6:41 p.m., Brian texted, running late, same words, different night. I had a closing shift at Oak Street Market and couldn't be in 2 places. I called Freya. Can you sit with Grandma tonight? I asked. Dinner, meds at 8. I'll be over after close. Freya didn't sigh or make it dramatic. I can be there in 10. 60 a night, like we said. Thank you, I said, and meant it. She texted me a photo of Grandma and the cat watching Wheel of Fortune at 7:05, the time stamped like a little bandage on the evening. I saved it to the Grandma folder. Brian sent nothing else that night. I finished closing, did the deposit, locked the side door, and drove to the yellow house with that blue lanyard biting my neck. Freya handed me a paper note with what Grandma ate and the time she took her pills. I handed her cash. 60 gone. The week after that, same Saturday story. Running late at 6:12. Then silence. I tried to swap shifts and couldn't. My cook called out sick. I called Freya again. She came. 60. By the 4th Saturday, Freya had a family birthday. I told my supervisor I needed the night. He raised an eyebrow, glanced at the schedule, and slid me a PTO form. That's 2 days this month, Tash, he said. You good? Yeah, I lied. Family stuff. Haley caught me in the break room filling out that form. She wears her hair in a bun with pins stuck through it like arrows. Always sees more than I want her to. You look wrecked, she said around a mouthful of chips. You okay? I'm fine, I said, pushing the form into my bag. I wasn't. I was counting in my head, 60, 120, 180, plus gas across town, plus whatever I wasn't making when I burned PTO. Sundays were mine, like we'd agreed. I still came over with soup and groceries on those nights, set out pills, sat through the crossword show she likes. But Saturdays, his nights, kept falling to me to arrange, to cover, to pay for. It was 6 Saturdays before I let myself say out loud that it wasn't just this once. The pattern was ugly and simple. At 6-something, a running late. By 9, a story about traffic or a friend needing him. Around midnight, if anything, you okay? That read more like checking I'd handled it. I stopped replying with no worries. I started saving everything. I had 8 nights where Freya sat with Grandma because I couldn't get off in time. 8 little dings on my banking app. 8 texts from Freya saying, here now, and she took them at 8:12, and 1 photo of Grandma's cat asleep on Freya's lap. 8 60s, $480. Nestled between those were Brian's posts, a boomerang of a beer clinking back and forth, tagged at a sports bar 20 minutes from Grandma's. A selfie with a neon sign as bright as a bruise behind him. The caption, finally a Saturday with no obligations, posted at 11:46 p.m. I screenshot them all, threw them in the Grandma folder next to a picture of the calendar squares with B on Saturdays, N on Sundays. The month looked fair when you saw the alternating letters, like a pattern you could trust. It wasn't. The 7th week I tried a different tack. I texted him early. Reminder, Saturday is yours. Dinner by 7, meds at 8. Please confirm. He reacted with a thumbs up. At 7:19, running late, Freya was out of town that night. I took the PTO. That made 2 days gone in a month, the maximum before my supervisor started asking harder questions. He didn't say anything when I handed him the form, just watched me like he was adding up numbers too. After shift that night, I opened my laptop at my kitchen table and pulled up the Grandma folder. I listed dates, put little hash marks next to every time I'd paid Freya, stuck the screenshots into a doc and labeled them with timestamps. I scrolled through my bank app and highlighted the 8 payments. It felt clinical, like I was auditing my own life. I opened Venmo and started a request to Brian. Description, Grandma coverage. Freya X8, hour $60. Your Saturdays 3.4, 3.11, 3.18, 3.25, 4.1, 4.8, 4.15, 4.22. Total, $408. I attached a screenshot of the list. Dates blurred for privacy except the month and day. The totals circled. I kept the tone light in the note because I know how he spins things when it feels like an attack. Thanks for covering your share, I wrote. Makes it easier for me to keep Sundays solid. I sat there with my finger hovering over pay for longer than I want to admit. This is the part where, growing up, we smoothed it over for him. Mom left, and we learned how to make ourselves small around the crack of every door closing. Grandma taught us to be kind. Being clear felt like being mean. I hit send. A minute later, the little requested badge popped up next to his name. I put my phone face down and went to wash dishes. The sink backed up a little, and the water ran warm, and I washed until the plate squeaked under my fingers, and the only thing left to do was dry my hands and flip my phone over. No reply. The green dot next to his name blinked on and off. Under the request, a line appeared. Viewed. I took a screenshot of that too. Then I set an alarm for Saturday afternoon, the kind that vibrates your whole pocket, and labeled it, "Don't cover for free." Brian's reply to the Venmo request came 20 minutes later. A laughing emoji, then a paragraph that started with "family doesn't charge family" and ended with "you're making it transactional." I sat at my kitchen table and typed slow. "I'm not charging for love. I'm asking you to cover costs on your Saturdays when you didn't show. Freya isn't free. My PTO isn't fake." He called instead of texting, like he could charm his way through a phone speaker. "Nat, come on. You know what we've been through. Mom left. I'm dealing with stress you don't even understand." "We both lived that," I said, keeping my voice even. "And we made a plan. Saturday is you. Sunday is me." "You're really going to nickel and dime me over a couple nights?" His voice had that lazy smile painted on it. "This is messed up. It's 8 nights. It's $480. It's groceries," I said. "If scheduling is the problem, I can make it easier." I hung up before the conversation slid into the old swamp. I opened Google Calendar and built a new one called Grandma Care. Saturdays, 6:30, 19 p.m., I labeled Brian, dinner and meds. Sundays, Natasha, dinner and meds. I added notes: dinner by 7, meds at 8. I turned on reminders: 1 hour before, 30 minutes before, 10 minutes before, and sent him the invite. "The invite stayed pending," he texted, "not accepting your micromanagement calendar. LOL. By Saturday afternoon, my alarm went off. "Don't cover for free." I texted him anyway, because Grandma is a person, not a project. Reminder: you tonight. Dinner by 7, meds at 8. Please confirm. He reacted with a thumbs up. At 7 near 12, nothing. At 7:31, I called Grandma. She picked up on the second ring, TV loud in the background. "Hey, sweetheart," she said. "Brian texted he's running late. Have you eaten?" "I had toast," she said like it was a real meal. "Saving the soup." "Meds at 8, I said. "Put the pill box on your nightstand so you see it." "I know," she said. "He's a good boy, just busy." At 8:05, I texted Brian. "Are you here? She needs meds." No reply. At 8:37, "You need to give her the evening pills with water." He finally texted at 9:02. "LOL chill. On my way." I stared at that for a long minute. My car keys were right there. So was the blue lanyard. I could have gotten in, driven across town, done the thing I always do: fix it, smooth it, pay later in exhaustion. I didn't. I called Grandma again. "Don't worry," she said, already getting drowsy. "I'll do them when he's here." "Okay," I said, hating how the word felt. "Call me if you need me." At 10:11, still nothing from Brian. I opened Instagram out of habit more than hope, and saw it, the boomerang of neon shots lined up on a bar, clinking back and forth, one of his friend's wrists in the frame with a glow stick. Posted at 11:38 p.m., his caption, "Out, out." The location tag was a nightclub across town. Comments were already stacking up with fire emojis and "let's go." I took screenshots, the timestamp, the caption, the location tag, the list of likes with his little profile picture smiling at the camera like a golden retriever. I threw them in the grandma folder next to the Venmo request and the calendar photo. I texted him one more time. "Did you give her meds?" He read it and typed for a second. A bubble popped up and then disappeared. Then, "We're fine. Stop being dramatic." I didn't sleep well. I woke up at 7, made coffee I didn't drink, and drove to the Yellow House. The living room smelled like dust and last night's TV. Grandma was asleep in her chair with the throw blanket half off. The pill box sat by the remote. Saturday PM was still full. My stomach dropped in a way that felt physical, like a floor giving out. I touched her shoulder gently. "Grandma," I said, "wake up a minute." She blinked at me, surprised and then sheepish. I was waiting, she said. I must have dozed. I held the pill box so she could see. You missed these last night. Oh. She looked small suddenly. It's morning. Should I take them now? I grabbed the sheet with her med schedule from the drawer. Dr. Patel's office number was at the top. I called. The after-hours line forwarded to a nurse who sounded like she'd had coffee. I'm with my grandmother, I said. She missed her evening meds last night, blood pressure and a thyroid pill. It's 8:12 a.m. now. What should we do? The nurse asked her name, the meds, the dosages. She was calm. Give the blood pressure pill now with food, she said. Skip the thyroid and resume the regular schedule tonight. Watch for dizziness today and call if her pressure's high or if anything seems off. Thank you, I said, writing it down even though I'd remember every word. I made toast and eggs and sat with Grandma until she ate and swallowed the pill, counted the sips of water with her the way I do at night. I took a photo of the pill box with Saturday p.m. still closed and Sunday a.m. open, the little proof square my brain needed, and labeled it with the date. Brian texted at 9:06. Chill, everything is fine. You didn't have to swoop in. I sent him the photo of the pill box and didn't add any words. A minute later, the scene appeared and then nothing. I opened my laptop back home and moved the Instagram screenshots into a new subfolder, Evidence. It felt gross, like I was building a case against my own brother, but the alternative was this feeling in my chest forever. I sent him one more thing, another invite to the Grandma Care calendar. It sat there, pending, the digital equivalent of him shrugging with a grin. I set my own Sunday reminder. Then I put the key lanyard on the hook and let the quiet in my apartment be just quiet, not teeth. I didn't make any big announcement to myself. I just opened my laptop on Monday night and started a spreadsheet. Date in the first column, Brian Saturday in the next. Freya, amount, notes. I pulled up the Grandma folder and worked through it like I was closing out a drawer at the market. No drama, just numbers. 3 to 4. Freya sat $60. Dinner on plus meds. Photo 7:05 p.m. 3:11, $60. 3:18, $60. 3:25, $60. 4:1, $60. 4:8, $60. 4:15, $60. 4:22, $60. 8 lines, $480 total. The kind of number that makes my chest feel tight because it's both not a fortune and the exact amount that keeps landing between me and ease. I texted Freya, "Can I swing by? Need receipts for the nights you sat with Grandma, if you have them." She replied in under a minute. "Come over, I'll write them out." Her porch light was on. She met me at the door with a plate covered in foil and a pen tucked behind her ear. "Banana bread," she said, pressing the plate into my hands. "You looked tired yesterday." I laughed because she wasn't wrong. "You're a saint." "I'm an early sleeper. You keep my evenings interesting," she said, and waved me toward her kitchen table. She pulled a pad of receipt paper from a drawer, the kind with carbon copies, and wrote each date carefully. Time in and time out. Companion care for Charlotte, $60. Signed her name. She tore off the top copies and put them in a neat stack. "I can come to court if you want," she said, casual like she was offering a ride to the store. "I hope it doesn't come to that," I said, "but thank you." Back home, I slid the receipts into plastic sleeves and added them to a binder I'd started. I made divider tabs out of sticky notes, receipts, texts, posts, calendar, PTO. The organizing part felt like reclaiming breath. I printed the screenshots, the running late text with timestamps, the blue check marks where he'd read and didn't answer, the Instagram shots with the date and the neon signs. I added a photo of the fridge calendar with our alternating letters and one of Grandma's pill box with Saturday p.m. still full. I printed my bank transactions showing 8 payments to Freya. The printer whirred and smelled like warmed dust. At work the next morning, I caught Haley between the dairy case and the bakery. "Do you think you could print my attendance log?" "Just mine," I said. "I need proof of the PTO days I used." She looked at me, at the way I was biting the inside of my cheek. "You doing a thing?" she asked. "I'm doing a thing," I said. "I'll get it after my break," she said. And good. She found me in the office later and slid a printout across the desk. 2 PTO days in March, 1 pending in April, she said in a low voice. "Is this the brother thing?" "Yeah," I said. "Good," she said again, like a stamp. On my lunch, I Googled small claims in our county. The limit was plenty high. The filing fee was $75. I clicked through to the e-filing portal and made an account, the kind with security questions that always make me pause. I filled out plaintiff, Natasha Young. Defendant, Brian Young. My stomach did a small flip typing his name in that box. I typed out the claim in the little narrative field. We agreed to alternate Saturday-Sunday evening caregiver duties for our grandmother. On 8 Saturdays, Brian failed to appear. I hired our neighbor, Freya Wilkins, to sit with my grandmother at $60 per night to cover his missed turns. I am seeking reimbursement of $480 for those costs, plus filing fees. The portal asked if I wanted to attach exhibits now or bring them to the hearing. I uploaded the spreadsheet and 1 receipt as a sample, then made a note that additional documentation would be provided at hearing. I put in my email, my address, my phone number. The part where you list the defendant's address made my fingers feel like someone else's, typing Grandma Street, the place where the porch light is always a little too dim and the screen door has a stubborn spring. When it asked for payment, I got up and looked in my closet. My work flat sat on the floor by the hamper, splitting along the toe seam. I'd put aside $70 from tips and overtime to replace them. I added $5 more from the coffee can in my cabinet and went back to the laptop. I entered my card, $75. Submit. There was a pause long enough to make me worry I'd mistyped something. Then the confirmation page loaded with the case number, like a new license plate you don't know by heart yet. An email pinged my phone. Your claim has been received. The court will review and contact you regarding service and hearing schedule. My hands shook, but not like fear, more like when you've been holding a bag too long and finally set it down. I printed the confirmation and slid it into the very front of the binder, the way you put a name tag on a suitcase. I printed a copy of the complaint and the case number to carry with me. In the evening, I went to Grandma's like I always do on my night. I checked her meds, heated soup, listened to her tell me about her neighbor's new bird feeder. I kept the binder in my tote bag by the chair, a weight against my leg. When Grandma dozed off, I pulled out my phone and snapped 1 more photo of the calendar on her fridge, this week and next. BNBN. It looked so simple written down. On my kitchen table later, I laid the binder and the printed complaint next to my keys. The blue lanyard glowed like a strip of sky in the lamplight. The case number in bold at the top of the page looked official and unreal the way hospital bracelets look. I didn't gloat. There was no victory lap. I just sat there, peeled back the foil on Freya's banana bread, cut a slice, and ate it standing up, the sweetness heavy and ordinary. Then I stacked the papers, squared the corners with my palm, and left the packet there like something that could finally take a hit for me. The court email came 2 days after I filed. A PDF with a case number, a hearing date 3 weeks out on a Tuesday morning, and a note in bold. Defendant must be served at least 15 days before hearing. Service instructions were attached like a recipe card. Hire a process server or ask the sheriff. File proof of service. I called a process server listed on the county website. A woman picked up on the second ring. brisk and kind. I gave her Brian's name and Grandma's address, the same one I'd typed into the complaint because that's where he's easiest to find when he bothers to be found. Any pattern to when he's there? She asked. Saturdays are supposed to be his evenings, but he's flaky, I said. I'm always there Sundays around 6 to set up Grandma's pillbox and dinner. Sometimes he swings by to borrow tools from the shed. He's got a black Civic. He usually smells like cologne. She chuckled. We'll make 3 attempts at different times. If you know he'll be there, text me. I texted Brian that afternoon. Pharmacy says Grandma's refills are ready. Can you pick up and drop here Sunday at 6:30? He reacted with a thumbs up, which meant nothing and everything. I texted the process server. Try Sunday at 6:30. He said he'd drop meds. Sunday came, and I did my usual. Soup, greens, pills lined up in the little plastic tray. I put the new pill packs on the counter and waited. At 6:52, no Brian. At 7:10, I heard the crunch of tires over the gravel. Headlights washed across the living room wall. A knock at the screen door. I stood up, wiped my hands on a dish towel, and felt the blue lanyard tap my sternum like a metronome. It's open, I called, because it always is. Brian pushed the door and stepped onto the porch, plastic pharmacy bag in his hand. There was a man on the walkway I didn't recognize. Neat jacket, clipboard. He walked up the steps behind Brian. Brian Young, the man said. Brian turned, already smiling because attention is his favorite mirror. Yeah? The man held out a manila envelope. You've been served. He was efficient about it, like delivering the mail. He asked Brian to confirm his name again and noted the date and time on his clipboard. Brian did that laugh he does when he's scared and pretending it's funny. You're kidding, he said, glancing past the man to me inside the doorway. Nat, you really did this? The server handed him a copy and nodded at me. Proof of service will be filed, he said, and went back down the steps like a ghost who'd done his haunting. Brian waved the envelope. You're dragging our family name through court over chump change? I stepped onto the porch and took the pharmacy bag from his hand because the refills mattered more than his tone. It's 8 nights. It's $480. That's not chump change to me. 60 a night is groceries. He shook his head and smirked like we were in a sitcom. No one's going to take you seriously, Natasha. Judge is going to laugh this out of the room. I have receipts, I said. I have your texts. I have your posts. You're unbelievable, he said, but it sounded thin. He pulled the screen door, muttered something about errands, and got back in his Civic. The taillights disappeared down the block. The envelope stayed tucked under his arm. Inside, I set up Grandma's pill box for the week. Tiny rattles of medicine into each compartment. Careful fingers. She watched me from the table, eyes on my face like she was trying to read weather. Everything okay? She asked quietly. Everything's set, I said. You're good for the week. I didn't add anything about court. She has enough to carry. The process server texted me a photo of the proof of service form, lines filled with neat block letters, and a thumbs up. I saved it to the Grandma folder and slid the original I'd get later into a mental slot labeled Done. Monday, Freya texted me a photo of a handwritten statement on lined paper. I, Freya Wilkins, provided evening companion care for Charlotte on the following dates: 3/4, 3/11, 3/18, 3/25, 4/1, 4/8, 4/15, 4/22. Duties included preparing dinner and ensuring evening medications were taken. Charge was $60 per night. Signed and dated. She added, I can come if needed. Bless her. I printed it at work on my lunch and tucked it behind her receipts in the binder. Haley saw me in the office and lifted her eyebrows. I just nodded. She squeezed my shoulder once and went back to stocking end caps. The week before the hearing, an official-looking postcard arrived at my apartment with the date and courtroom number. I set it on the fridge with the tomato magnet that had migrated from Grandma's, a tiny circle of red holding up the paper like a cheerleader. The night before court, I took everything out of the binder and put it back in order. Complaint, proof of service, spreadsheet, Freya's receipts, her statement, my bank transactions, the calendar photo, Brian's running late texts, the Instagram screenshots, the attendance log Haley printed. I added sticky notes with one word each: dates, costs, missed meds. I laid out my work pants and the good blouse that doesn't wrinkle if you look at it wrong. I superglued the split in my flats and set them by the door. At 9:17 p.m., Brian texted, "Hope you like losing. Judge will see through your drama." I stared at it, then took a screenshot and dropped it into the folder with everything else. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say that I hadn't already said, with a spreadsheet and 8 receipts. I washed a sinkful of dishes because it's the one thing that always quiets my head. I dried my hands, checked that my alarm was set early enough to get Grandma settled with Freya for the morning. She'd offered to sit for free while I was at court, and I told her I'd insist on paying after, order or not. I put the blue lanyard with Grandma's key next to the binder on the table. The apartment was finally quiet, in a way that felt like a blanket, not a warning. I turned off the light and let tomorrow come. The courthouse smelled like coffee and copy paper. I found the right floor by following a stream of people holding folders like life rafts. Freya had come over at 8 to sit with Grandma. "Go," she'd said, taking my tote of groceries without letting me argue money. "Text me when you're done." I locked up, touched the blue lanyard against my collarbone, and drove downtown with my binder buckled in like a passenger. Outside the small claims courtroom, a clerk with a stack of files checked names off a list. "Young," she said, looking up. "Natasha," I said. "Plaintiff." She drew a line on her page. "Defendant?" "Should be here," I said. "Have a seat. When both parties are present, I'll mark you ready." I sat and opened the binder just enough to make sure everything was still there. Complaint, proof of service, spreadsheet, receipts, posts, texts, attendance log. I had made extra copies of the spreadsheet and receipts in case the judge wanted to keep anything. Haley had texted me a thumbs up and a "you've got this," and then, a minute later, "don't let him talk circles." At 9:18, Brian slid in like a guy late to a movie and pretending it was planned. Cologne too strong, phone in hand, grin on. He wore a jacket I knew he couldn't afford without payment plans, and sunglasses pushed up on his head like a crown. "Nat," he said, dropping into the chair next to me. "We can just tell the judge this is a misunderstanding." "It isn't," I said. He leaned back, legs out like he owned the hallway, and scrolled his phone. The clerk called, "Young versus Young," and we both stood. She looked between us. "We encourage parties to talk before the hearing to see if you can settle. If you reach an agreement, we can put it in writing." Brian shook his head, amused like she'd offered him decaf. "Not a chance," he said. "We'll let the judge sort this out." "Okay," she said, not blinking. "You're on second. Sit tight." I swallowed. My hands felt steady around the binder's edges. The key on my lanyard knocked softly against the plastic sleeve as I shifted. Behind the courtroom doors, a bailiff's voice boomed, "All rise," for whoever was in there ahead of us. We waited through someone else's landlord dispute like you wait for an X-ray reading, ears picking up the rhythms without catching the words. When it was our turn, we went in and sat at the 2 tables marked plaintiff and defendant. Judge Henry took the bench, middle-aged, sharp-eyed, a tie that didn't try too hard. He looked like he'd read every file already and was just waiting for people to catch up. "Good morning," he said. "Young versus Young. Appearances?" "Plaintiff, Natasha," I said, standing. "Defendant, Brian," Brian said. like he was introducing himself at a party. We swore in. The bailiff had us raise our right hands and promise to tell the truth. The oath made the room feel smaller. Judge Henry glanced at the file in front of him. Ms. Young, you filed a claim for $480 plus costs, alleging you incurred expenses for caregiver services on evenings that were the defendant's agreed responsibility. Mr. Young, you dispute? Brian opened his mouth, but the judge held up a hand. I'll hear from Ms. Young first, ma'am. I stepped closer and slid my binder across so he could reach it. We agreed to alternate evenings for our grandmother, Saturdays for Brian, Sundays for me. On 8 Saturdays, he didn't come. I hired our neighbor, Freya, to sit with her and handle dinner and meds at $60 per night. I'm seeking reimbursement for those 8 nights, plus the filing fee. Do you have documentation of those dates and amounts? Judge Henry asked. Yes, I said. Receipts from Freya, a spreadsheet listing the dates, my bank transactions showing the payments. I also have texts from Brian saying he was running late on his nights and screenshots of his social media posts from those same evenings. Brian laughed under his breath. The judge didn't look at him. I opened the binder to the receipts tab and slid the plastic sleeves out, then the spreadsheet. These are copies, I said. I can leave them with the court. Judge Henry took the stack, scanned the dates, and flipped to the next section. His expression didn't change, but he was reading, not pretending. He paused at the bank transactions, nodded once, and kept going. When he hit the tabs labeled texts and posts, he slid one of the sheets out in full and adjusted his glasses. Mr. Young, he said without looking up, do you dispute that these were Saturdays you had agreed to cover? Brian shrugged, palms up. I mean, agreed. We didn't sign a contract. It's family. This court can consider informal agreements and costs, Judge Henry said, still scanning. You can respond after I've reviewed this. The clerk leaned over and took the copies I offered for the defendant's side. I set the attendance log and the calendar photo on top of the stack. The alternating B and N, neat like a lie, told loudly. The key on my lanyard swung when I stepped back. I kept my face neutral. Brian muttered, "This is ridiculous," barely loud enough to hear. The smells in the room, coffee, paper, someone's too sweet perfume, settled around us. Judge Henry flipped another page, paused, and then he did something that made Brian straighten in his chair. He stopped on a screenshot and held it a little closer, eyes narrowing to read the caption. He tapped the timestamp with his finger, once, like a metronome. Then he looked up, finally, at Brian, and the air in the room shifted the way it does before a storm. Judge Henry tapped the paper once with his finger and read it out loud, dry as if he were reading a grocery list. Out with the boys, no responsibilities, posted at 11:58 p.m., Saturday the 18th. He glanced at me. That was a Saturday you say was his responsibility. Yes, I said. He texted running late at 6:41 that night and didn't come. He flipped to the next page. Sundays are for recovery, posted the morning after, liked by 23 people. He looked at Brian. Mr. Young, explain how you can be running late to your grandmother's on a Saturday night while tagging a nightclub across town. Brian sat up, mouth already shaping charm. Look, it's family. We all help. She's fine. She knows I love her. And Natasha is making it transactional. We didn't sign anything. The judge held up a hand. This is small claims court. We deal with agreements and costs. The question is, was there an agreement? Were costs incurred when you didn't show, Ms.? Young has provided a calendar reflecting an alternating schedule, your text messages acknowledging your nights, and receipts for caregiver services paid when you failed to appear. He turned to me. Miss Young, these receipts from Ms. Wilkins, how were they paid? In cash, I said, and pointed to the bank transactions. Withdrawals on the same dates. She also wrote a statement of duties and dates. He slid the statement out, scanned it, and nodded. And this attendance log? Context, I said. I used PTO to cover some of his nights when I couldn't hire Freya. I'm not asking for lost wages, just the $480 I paid out plus the $75 filing fee. Understood, he said. He stacked the papers, squared them, and looked at Brian again. Do you dispute that you missed these dates? Brian hedged. I mean, sometimes plans change. Traffic. Work. Friends needed me. And she could have just... Did you inform her you wouldn't be there in enough time for her to arrange coverage? The judge asked. Brian's smile slipped a fraction. I said I was running late. Judge Henry looked back down at the screenshots, then at the calendar photo with the alternating B and N. He adjusted his glasses, and his voice went a shade firmer. Ms. Young's documentation is thorough. The timeline is clear. On balance, I find that you, Mr. Young, agreed to assume Saturday evenings and failed to show on 8 dates, causing her to incur reasonable costs to ensure an elderly relative was fed and medicated. Brian opened his hands again, palms up. It's family. It is, the judge said, which is why you make a plan and stick to it, or you pay the person who did. He turned to the clerk. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $480, plus the $75 filing fee. I felt the breath leave me in a way that didn't hurt. Judge Henry kept going. Now, about the future. Ms. Young proposes alternating evenings. Mr. Young, are you willing to stipulate on the record to continue that schedule, and, if you miss a turn, reimburse half of any caregiver costs within 7 days? That will reduce the need for further litigation. Brian stared at the table, then flicked his eyes to me, then to the clerk like he was looking for an exit. His voice lost its shine. What does stipulate even mean? It means you agree, the judge said. I can note it as part of the judgment. If you don't comply, Ms. Young can return to enforce. I didn't talk. I let the silence sit. Brian exhaled through his nose. Fine, he said. I'll agree. Ms. Young? The judge asked. Yes, I said. The clerk wrote quickly, reading back the terms. Alternating Saturday, Sunday evening caregiver duties. If the scheduled person misses, any reasonable replacement costs are split evenly. Reimbursement paid within 7 days of the missed date. We both nodded. The judge signed. He slid the stack back toward me. Ms. Young, leave copies with the court. Mr. Young, you will receive the judgment by mail. Payment is due promptly. If you fail to pay, she can pursue collection remedies. Brian's jaw worked like chewing air. He didn't say anything. The blush on his neck had climbed high enough to color his ears. Anything else? Judge Henry asked. No, I said. Brian smirked at nothing. No. Good luck to your grandmother, the judge said, and that was the part that made me want to cry, because it was the only piece that mattered, and he'd put it in the center without making a speech. Outside, the hallway felt colder. Brian hovered like he wanted to perform indignation for the clerk, but couldn't find an audience. You happy? He said, low. I'm relieved, I said. I'll email you the invoice per order, due in 7 days. He rolled his eyes and walked off. The smell of his cologne trailed behind him and thinned out into the bigger scent of floor cleaner. I sat on a bench, took a photo of the stamped judgment for my folder, and texted Freya. Done. He has 7 days. Thank you for sitting with her this morning. Freya sent back a confetti emoji and a heart, and said Grandma beat her at gin rummy. In the car, I drafted an email with the subject line. Per court order, reimbursement due. I attached the spreadsheet and a PDF invoice that matched the judgment, $480 plus $75 filing fee. I added the new line at the bottom. Future missed turns trigger 50 of 50 split with reimbursement due within 7 days per stipulation on today's date. Then I sent it, copied myself, and texted Brian, short and neutral. Invoice attached per order. I didn't gloat. I drove to the yellow house with the blue lanyard warm against my chest, stopped in the kitchen, and checked the pill box out of reflex even though it wasn't my night. The little squares clicked under my fingers. Then I locked up, texted Haley a quick, "We won," and went home to a quiet that, for once, didn't have teeth. I stopped at the hardware store on my way to Grandma's and bought a realtor-style lockbox, the kind with a little dial face and a clamshell for a key. $29 and a small screwdriver later, I had it clipped to the inside rail of her porch. I put the spare house key in, spun the code, and locked the front door for the first time in a long time. The screen door still creaked. The porch still smelled like dust and old geraniums. I wrote the code on a sticky note for Grandma and tucked it in her recipe box in case she forgot. "I don't like all this security," she said, standing in the doorway watching me. "It's just so only the people who are supposed to be here get in," I said. "Freya has the code. I have the code. Brian will have the code when he needs it." She nodded and fussed with the door frame. "If you say so." At home, I built a new calendar and shared it again. Saturdays, Brian, dinner by 7, meds at 8. Sundays, Natasha, same notes. I added a line to each event description. If missed, 50-50 split on replacement costs due within 7 days per court order. I dropped a link to a payment request template under it, so neither of us had to guess. I texted Brahmin the same way I'd text any coworker after a schedule change. Per court order, here's the calendar invite. Please accept. Lockbox on Grandma's porch. Code on request. Reimbursement due by Friday. No pay, no key. He came back fast. "Seriously? You changed her door? This is Grandma's house, not a fortress." I forwarded the PDF of the judgment and the invoice from yesterday. "Due Friday," I wrote. Then, "Code once payment is received." 3 dots blinked, stopped. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a Venmo notification. $550 with the note per order. I sent him the 4-digit code and the tiny lockbox pictogram just to leave nothing to "I didn't know." I paid Freya for court morning anyway, $60 in an envelope with a thank you card, even though she had waved me off. "Take it," I said. "That one wasn't on Brian, it was on me." She tucked it in her pocket and pretended not to get misty. Saturday came and he tried one more angle at noon. "Can we swap tonight? I've got plans." I replied with a screenshot of the calendar and, "It's your Saturday." "Swap needs 24 hours notice and agreement." "No agreement today." He didn't answer. At 6:12, the calendar chimed on both our phones. At 6:40, I texted, "You set for dinner?" He sent back, "On my way, no emojis, no shine." I had a closing shift. I did the deposit and the count with my hands steady for the first time in weeks. Haley passed me in the aisle around 8, saw my face and mouthed, "Well?" I checked my phone. A photo from Brian. Grocery store rotisserie chicken on Grandma's counter. Microwavable mashed potatoes, green beans in a plastic tub. The timestamp was 7:03. He'd taken the photo like proof, the way I take them. No caption, just the picture, and 20 minutes later, another text. Meds done at 8:05. I saved both to the Grandma folder and didn't respond beyond a simple thanks. Sunday, I went over with my own groceries and made soup because she still likes mine best. I set up the pill box, watched the 7:30 show with the antiques, and didn't feel that itch behind my eyes that I usually do. When I left, I spun the lockbox dial twice out of habit and felt the porch settle around me. The code stayed the same. Monday afternoon, Brian sent another payment, $30 with a note. My half for Freya if you needed her this week. It was oddly formal, like he was wearing a borrowed suit. I replied, not needed. If that changes, I'll invoice per event. He sent back a thumbs up and nothing else. The next Saturday, he was 10 minutes early. I happened to be there dropping off prescriptions. He stood on the porch with a paper bag that smelled like hot chicken and soap, looking smaller than his cologne. He nodded at the lockbox. You really went there? I did, I said. It's easier to track. He glanced past me into the living room. She okay? She's okay. He didn't swagger in. He wiped his shoes on the mat without me saying anything, set the food on the counter, and asked Grandma if she wanted the legs or the breast. She smiled at him like she always has. I stood in the kitchen doorway long enough to see him fill a glass with water and set the pill box next to the plate. You can go, he said without looking at me, a little gruff. I got it. I know, I said, and I did. I went to my shift and didn't check the clock every 9 minutes. At 8:09, my phone buzzed with a photo of the pill box. Saturday p.m. flipped shut. The date written on a post-it. No caption. There wasn't a miracle. He didn't turn into a different person overnight. He still posted a Sunday morning story with a coffee and a sleepy face. But he was on time the next week. The plan lived on the calendar instead of only in my head. When he asked for a swap on a Friday for a Saturday, I said no and didn't feel like a villain. When I needed to cover a Sunday because of inventory, I asked him on Wednesday and attached a $30 request for his half of Freya if he couldn't. He accepted. He showed up. And when he didn't, which happened once, he paid within a day without poking at old wounds. At work, Haley unclenched for me. You look 10 pounds lighter, she said, adjusting a display of apples. Those your new flats? I looked down at the still glued pair and laughed. Not yet, I said. But soon. Grandma still tells me, he's a good boy, just busy, and I let her have that. I don't argue with anyone anymore. I send the calendar invite. I send the invoice. I lock the door and go to work. The blue lanyard hangs on the hook by my door, not a leash, but a tool. One night after dishes, I sat in her quiet house and realized the quiet didn't feel like a warning anymore. It felt like she was napping, like the TV could go on when she woke, like the world would keep its shape if I looked away. I checked the pill box one last time, turned out the kitchen light, and left the porch light on low. I'm not the default daughter anymore. I'm a daughter with boundaries, and they hold.